Chapter 52-25. The ancient city below was extremely large. After Lin Xian and the others entered, they were filled with emotions. They could sense a very mysterious aura. The mysterious man led the way and introduced the situation of the ancient city to Lin Xian and the others. It turned out that this ancient city was only a part of the Yuhua immortal dynasty. Most of it was still sealed. Even in this ancient city, there were many factions inside. These were all passed down from the Yuhua immortal dynasty, but after millions of years of evolution, they turned into many factions. These factions were called immortal foundations. For example, this time, the mysterious man brought Lin Xian and the others to the 9-star immortal foundation. Other than that, there were also other immortal foundations that sent people to invite the powerhouses of the world. The 9-star immortal foundation also had an extraordinary aura. After Lin Xian and the others arrived, they discovered that there were 9 beams of starlight that pierced through heaven and earth. There was a mysterious starry aura and a terrifying array formation above. And above it, there were countless palaces and mansions. This was the 9-star immortal foundation. Everyone, please enter. The mysterious man invited everyone in. Along the way, they saw many guards and powerhouses. Those people also quickly bowed. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. He looked around and discovered that those people were all wearing ancient Taoist robes. He was shocked. The Yuhua immortal dynasty was like a world. Although it was a hidden seal, it was still passed down. There were definitely many experts and powerhouses here. Their appearance this time would probably shock the world. There was a lake in front and a small island on the lake. On the island in the center of the lake. On the island, there were pavilions and terraces. It was like a paradise on earth. Lin Xian and the others went up and discovered that spirit wine and delicacies had already been placed there. The few of you can rest for a while. I will go and invite the 9-star princess. The mysterious man turned and left. Not long after, he returned. This time, there were also a few figures who had come with him. Walking at the front was a woman wearing a starry dress. Her face was extremely beautiful, like a goddess of the galaxy. At her side, there were 3 figures following behind her, as if they were battle servants, not making a sound. However, Lin Xian was able to sense that the 3 of them possessed frightening powers. The man in Taoist robes also came. He followed beside them and said to Lin Xian and the others, "This is the princess of our 9-star immortal foundation. Greetings, 9-star princess." Lin Xian and the others stood up and greeted him. The 9-star's princess' beautiful eyes seemed to contain a mysterious power, as if stars were flickering in and out of existence. She looked at Lin Xian and the other 2 and said with a smile, "I've long heard of the 3 of you. Now that I've met you, you're indeed extraordinary." The princess was too polite. Lin Xian said with a smile. They sat down and began to exchange pleasantries, mainly to get to know each other. When they heard that Lin Xian was from the immortal graveyard, they were also stunned. The 9-star princess was also surprised. She didn't expect Lin Xian to have such an identity. At this moment, a man in battle armor standing behind said, "Don't worry. You probably haven't heard of the 9-star princess before, but her strength isn't any weaker than any of the princesses. In fact, it was even stronger than that." When they said this, their eyes were filled with pride. Although they had been living in seclusion and did not go out to compete with the geniuses in the outside world, however, they were the descendants of the Yuhua immortal dynasty after all. The divine abilities and ultimate skills they learned weren't inferior to those of the monarch races at all. They even felt that they were stronger than the monarch races. Therefore, when facing the geniuses outside, they naturally had the intention to compete. Especially when they heard that Lin Xian was from the immortal graveyard, they all frowned. The Daozhong actually gave their only chance to someone from the immortal graveyard. This was too childish. Did they not put the 9-star immortal platforms in their eyes? "Don't be rude," the 9-star princess shouted in a low voice. Only then did the armored man shut up. The 9-star princess looked at Lin Xian. "Young master, please forgive them. These people rarely interacted with outsiders. Therefore, they were a little arrogant." Lin Xian shook his head. He didn't care. The 9-star princess still valued Lin Xian very much. She had also collected some information about Lin Xian. To be able to kill the Dragon Prince, and even fight against the 10,000 Dragon Court for so long, it was enough to show how terrifying the other party was. More importantly, it was simply inconceivable that someone from the immortal graveyard could cultivate to such a level. The other party must have secrets that no one knew. Such a person was definitely strong. And this time, the immortal platforms of the Yuhua immortal dynasty invited the geniuses outside. Other than giving them a chance to obtain fortuitous encounters, more importantly, it was for themselves. Because only by finding the geniuses outside and cooperating with them could they enter that place and obtain fortuitous encounters. At that time, Lin Xian might be a strong helper. After sitting for about half a day and talking, the 9-star princess left. When she left, she told her subordinates to take good care of Lin Xian and the others. Zixing, young Master Lin, and the others will be in your care. The Taoist-robed man from before said, "Sister, don't worry." This Taoist-robed man was called Zixing. Since he called the 9-star princess sister, he must have an extraordinary identity. He should be a young master or a young master. Next, Lin Xian and the others rested for 2 days. Madame Purple Star came and brought them around the immortal platform to take a look at the scenery. Then Lin Xian asked if he could go out and take a look. He was also very curious about the Yuhua immortal dynasty, so he was prepared to go out and take a look. Of course, Zixing brought Lin Xian and the others out of the 9-star immortal platform and walked outside. This ancient city was called the Yuhua Ancient City. To be able to unlock the seal meant that it was extraordinary in the Yuhua immortal dynasty. Lin Xian and the others could feel a mysterious aura. This aura was very helpful for them to comprehend the Great Tao. If they could stay here for a long time, how terrifying would their understanding of the Great Tao be? One could imagine how terrifying the people in the immortal platform were. Morong Qingqing and Yen Ruyu also asked about some legends of the Yuhua immortal dynasty. Zixing explained to them, which surprised Lin Xian and the others. Back then, the Yuhua immortal dynasty was a terrifying existence. It sounded even stronger than the emperor races. There is an ancient tree in front that has existed for a long time. Do you want to go there to comprehend it? Zixing said. The eyes of Lin Xian and the others lit up. Thank you. They walked towards the ancient tree. The ancient tree wasn't tall, only a few meters tall. The trunk on it was really dry. However, it carried a mysterious aura. According to Zixing, many experts had once comprehended the Great Tao here. Lin Xian's eyes flickered with a golden light. He saw mysterious patterns on the ancient tree that emitted a mysterious aura. After sensing it carefully, it was indeed extraordinary. It seemed that he could come here to comprehend more in the future. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Did someone come in advance? How surprising! When Lin Xian and the others heard this, they turned their heads with puzzled expressions. Who was it? Chapter 52-26. Big Brother Chenmu, you're here too? Madame Purple Star greeted. Clearly, she knew the other party. A group of people walked over. Among them, there was a man wearing astral battle armor. He looked mighty and extraordinary. He was Chenmu. There was a group of people beside him. They were all wearing long robes. They even wore cloaks on their heads. Their bodies were hidden in the darkness. These people gave off a cold aura. It made people feel uncomfortable. Who are they? Lin Xian asked curiously. Madame Purple Star said, Young Master Lin, let me introduce you. This is Big Brother Chenmu. He's also a genius with a 9-star immortal foundation. After that, Madame Purple Star introduced Lin Xian and the other two to Chenmu. After Chenmu heard this, he was shocked. They were all emperor-level characters. At this moment, one of the people in long robes stood out and said, You're that Lin Xian and Lin Wudi? It was obvious that they had heard of this name before. That's right. Lin Xian nodded. Chenmu smiled. Young Master Lin, these are the experts of the Sky Snake race. They are guests that I invited over. Sky Snake race. Lin Xian was shocked when he heard this. He had never heard of this race before. They should be people from other continents on the buried Emperor Star. Or maybe they came from another world. However, to be invited here, it was enough to show that this race was extraordinary. Lin Xian nodded as a greeting. However, the Sky Serpent clan member didn't retreat. Instead, he said, "We heard that young Master Lin went against the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty, and even killed the Dragon Prince. We would like to see young Master Lin's skills." The one who spoke was a woman. However, her face couldn't be seen clearly because she was covered in a black robe. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. "You want to fight me?" "That's right. I heard that young Master Lin is also one of the dragons and knows how to use dragon's abilities. I naturally want to experience it." A cold light flashed in the woman's eyes. Although the Sky Snake race wasn't one of the dragons, they were one of the few ancient races that could contend with dragons. Now that they met an expert like Lin Xian, they naturally wanted to compete. "Are you sure you want to fight me?" Lin Xian reminded. "Fists and kicks have no eyes. Kid, you're too arrogant. Do you really think that just because you can fight against the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty, you can look down on the world? My Heavenly Snake Clan is not weaker than the dragons." Another robed man stood out and shouted coldly. "What's more, the one who did it was the princess of our Heavenly Serpent Clan. You should first think about whether or not you can withstand it." "Oh really? Since that's the case, I'll have to experience it for myself." 3 moves. Lin Xian nodded. The woman from before walked over. Her voice rang out. "My name is Kai Lingyi. Sir, be careful." Just as she finished speaking, her figure suddenly appeared in front of Lin Xian and struck out with her palms. 2 arms emerged from the black robe. They were abnormally white, like precious jade. It was a dazzling sight to behold. These 2 arms easily wrapped around Lin Xian's body, as if they had turned into 2 spirit snakes. In an instant, the killing began. Lin Xian's body trembled, and his pupils shrank. This person was not ordinary. He snorted coldly, and the 9 young divine flames on his body erupted, engulfing everything. A sonorous sound rang out as the divine flames collided with the white jade arms, making a sky-shaking sound. The 2 arms were unharmed. Although they were shaken away, they were not damaged. Kai Lingyi quickly dodged and retreated to the back. She smiled. 9 young divine body? It was indeed, as the legends said, the most masculine and young. Lin Xian was also surprised. With the power of his flames, even a great sage would not be able to withstand it. However, the other party was unharmed. This woman was not ordinary. She was definitely a young powerhouse. It seemed that he had underestimated her before. However, he did not mind. He had just casually attacked. He attacked with all his strength and was fearless. Kai Lingyi smiled. A mysterious light suddenly appeared in her eyes as she attacked Lin Xian. Even Zixing's expression changed. He felt an unfathomable pressure from the soul attack. Lin Xian naturally felt it as well. He snorted and his eyes flickered. However, at this moment, Kai Lingyi had already arrived behind him. A colorful mist pervaded between her hands and enveloped Lin Xian. This was a type of poison. If a great sage was poisoned, they would definitely die. Humph. Lin Xian snorted. His eyes burst out with astonishing radiance as he repelled the other party's soul attack. At the same time, he brandished his sword. This sword swept across the heaven and earth, splitting the colorful mist. It even struck Kai Lingyi. Kai Lingyi was split into 2 halves. Did he win? Morong Qingqing was delighted. However, she soon frowned. Lin Xian's expression was also grave. Kai Lingyi, who was split into 2 halves, slowly disappeared. Subsequently, a piece of snake skin fell to the ground. "Young master, good sword art. I have experienced it." Kai Lingyi appeared in the distance again. 3 moves had passed. "If there was a chance in the future, let's have a taste." After speaking, she wore the cloak again. "Young Master Chenmu, let's go." Chenmu nodded. "Everyone, please." He was prepared to leave with the Heavenly Snake Clan. However, before leaving, he still forgot to look at Lin Xian. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Zixing. "The Fallen Star Hall has opened. You can bring a few geniuses there to try." After speaking, they left. Looking at the backs of these people, Morong Qingqing walked over and said, "That's right. That woman is not ordinary." Yan Ryu also frowned slightly. His movement technique was very strange, and he used a soft power. He also had a powerful eye technique and could use poison. He was indeed a terrifying opponent. He definitely had the combat strength of a arch. Interesting. Lin Xian smiled. Only this could make his blood boil. He hoped that the people who entered the Yuhua immortal dynasty this time would surprise him. He did not want to have no opponents in the battle for the Emperor's Road. At this moment Morong Qingqing asked, "What is the Fallen Star Hall?" Zixing said, "This was a magical place in the ancient city. It had supreme great Tao. However, it would only open at certain times. She did not expect it to open this time. Perhaps it was because there were too many geniuses here. Do you want to take a look? If you can enter the Fallen Star Hall, you might have a chance to comprehend the great Tao. There might be other opportunities." Naturally, they had to go. Lin Xian and the others nodded. Then they headed to the Fallen Star Hall. On the other side, Kai Lingyi and the others also left. They were also heading to the Fallen Star Hall. Kai Lingyi's expression was also very serious. This Lin Wudi was indeed extraordinary. If I were to fight against him, I would probably only have a 50% chance of winning. The other geniuses of the Heavenly Snake Clan exclaimed. "Princess, is he really so powerful?" "That's right. I don't think it's anything. Didn't you guys come to a draw after 3 moves? Maybe he was poisoned." However, Kai Lingyi shook her head. "Don't underestimate him. He's very terrifying. All kinds of ultimate techniques are very terrifying. But if I don't use an extreme weapon, I really want to compete with him." Chapter 52-27. The Falling Star Hall was a magical place in the Yuhua ancient city. There were stars of the great Tao revolving around it, as if it was in the Milky Way. It was extremely mysterious. There were many people gathered around the Falling Star Hall. They were all waiting there. Some gathered together to communicate while some looked at each other with hostility. These were all geniuses. None of them were weak. It was obvious that the Yuhua Celestial Dynasty had gathered the top experts from all over the universe. Lin Xian also noticed some familiar faces. For example, the clans and sects that he had fought with before. Even the people from the Purple Mansion were here. Lin Xian met Qin Xiener at the Purple Mansion. Qin Xiener was very worried. When she saw Lin Xian, her eyes flickered. Lin Xian was shocked. He didn't go over but transmitted a message. "Why are you worried about me?" "Don't worry, the Purple Mansion can't do anything to me." Qin Xiener said, "I know you're fine. But there's something I don't know how to tell you." "What is it?" Lin Xian was shocked. "Is the Purple Mansion thinking of ways to deal with me again?" Qin Xiener said, "Maybe. Let me tell you something. Don't be too agitated." Lin Xian was even more curious. Qin Xiener said that Shen Jingqiu was in the Purple Mansion. Lin Xian's pupils constricted as a terrifying killing intent appeared. This caused the scalps of the surrounding people to go numb. Many of them turned around to look. "What's going on?" Even Morong Qingqing and Yan Ruyu were startled, and they hurried to ask, "Brother Xian, what's going on?" Lin Xian took a deep breath and suppressed his killing intent. He continued to transmit a message. "What's going on? Damn it. Does the Purple Mansion not want to live anymore? They actually dared to capture Qiu. Is this a threat?" Qin Xiener shook her head. "According to what I know, it wasn't the Purple Mansion that did it. It was Shen Jingqiu who took the initiative to come to the Purple Mansion." "What?" Lin Xian was even more shocked. Qiu went by herself. How is this possible? Was he being controlled by an illusion? It didn't seem like it. At that time, Zifu was also very shocked, because not long after, Shen Jingqiu was announced as the 10th successor. His status is even higher than ours, the 9 great successors. His status was even higher than that of the elders. I guessed that there was something he needed, and it was in his Purple Palace. That was probably why he made such a decision. Then is she here now? Lin Xian wanted to find Shen Jingqiu and ask her what was going on. Qin Xiener said, "I'm not sure. We don't know anything about her whereabouts. The Purple Mansion's Mansion Lord is personally in charge of this. However, I believe that with such a great opportunity in the Yuhua Immortal Dynasty, she would definitely come." "I got it. Help me find out more information," Lin Xian said. Qin Xiener nodded. "Don't worry, leave this to me. I don't think Shen Jingqiu will be in any danger for the time being. But you have to be careful. The Zifu won't let you off." Lin Xian's expression was solemn. He didn't expect that news about Shen Qingqiu was actually related to the Zifu. Why did Qiu'er go to the Zifu? Could it be that there really was something in the Zifu palace? He thought again. A golden whirlpool had appeared behind Shen Qingqiu, and there was a blurry figure there. Before, Lin Xian still felt that it was strange. However, when he cultivated the demon summoning scripture, he also condensed a demonic shadow. Lin Xian guessed that Shen Qingqiu must be cultivating an extremely powerful technique, similar to the demon summoning scripture. He didn't know whether it was a blessing or a curse. However, thinking about it, there shouldn't be any danger for the time being. He should pay more attention to the other party's news. The surrounding people all turned to look at Lin Xian. Who was this person? He actually released such a terrifying killing intent. That's right, he was too arrogant. Who did he want to attack? Discussions broke out one after another. Some people snorted coldly. They were very dissatisfied with Lin Xian. However, some people said, "Lower your voice. Do you know who he is? He is Lin Wudi. Do you dare to attack him?" What? It's actually him? He is Lin Wudi. Countless people exclaimed. Regarding the name of Lin Wudi, it was like thunder to their ears. Although not everyone had seen him before, they felt like they had heard of him before. This was an existence that killed the Dragon Prince, fought against the 10,000 Dragons Court, and fought against extreme weapons. He was a crown king, a young supreme martial artist. Everything he did was enough to shake the world. How could they not have heard of him? However, they didn't expect him to be even younger than they had imagined. Many people were terrified. They no longer had their previous dissatisfaction. After all, such a person had the right to release killing intent here. Of course, some people snorted coldly. Their expressions were incomparably cold. Some people even released their auras to compete with Lin Xian. Those who came here were all prepared to become emperors and fight against the world. Even if they met Lin Wudi, they still dared to fight him. At this moment, a terrifying aura appeared and swept across the world. It made everyone feel as if they were facing a great enemy. Even Lin Xian's pupils constricted. He turned his head and a terrifying light bloomed from his body, forming an illusion of the sun that swept between heaven and earth. There was a great enemy, and it was a peerless great enemy. The other party gave him a fatal threat. Who was it? The others cried out in alarm. Heavens, could it be that someone wanted to attack Lin Wudi? This was definitely a certain emperor, or someone of the same level. In the next moment, they saw a figure stand up. This figure carried a hazy aura. He was abnormally mysterious, as if he was a god. The power that descended from his body easily shattered the void. What a terrifying aura. What was that? Some people were terrified. There were also experts who exclaimed. The aura of primal chaos was terrifying. Heavens, could it be that he had the legendary chaotic body? When these words came out, the others were also shocked. No, it was the chaotic body. It was one of the strongest physiques in the universe. It was not weaker than the nine-yang divine body. It even carried unparalleled power. One must know that the power of primal chaos was a power that could split heaven and earth apart. Now that the chaotic body had appeared, it was truly an era of great competition. This person was definitely an emperor-level existence. He was a young powerhouse. Countless exclamations rang out. Even Yan Ruyu, Morong Qingcheng, and the others were shocked. Previously, a few emperors had appeared one after another. Who would have thought that such a legendary physique would appear now? They wondered what other terrifying characters would appear next. There were also people who walked over from the Starfall Hall. The Starfall Hall belonged to the Starfall Immortal Platform. The few experts who walked out at this moment were all from the Starfall Immortal Platform. They looked at the chaotic body in shock. How should I address you, young master? They had heard of Lin Xian's name, but they did not know who this chaotic body was. Even Lin Xian was very curious. As for the others, all of their gazes were focused on the chaotic body. The man who was surrounded by the hazy figure said in a deep voice, "My name is Hun Tian. Chaotic body Hun Tian." Everyone deeply remembered this name in their hearts. Chapter 52-28. It turned out to be young Master Hun Tian. The people from the Starfall Immortal Platform smiled and bowed. Such a person was enough to sweep through everything, so they naturally didn't dare to be negligent. Although this guy wasn't of arch, he had a super strong physique. He didn't know who was stronger between him and Lin Wuti. Lin Wuti had the 9-yang divine body, and the chaos body was definitely not weaker than the 9-yang divine body. However, Lin Wuti seemed to have other ultimate techniques. He was an existence that cultivated the Thearka's ultimate techniques. Exclamations sounded one after another. They felt that in a battle between the two, Lin Xian was very likely to be stronger. Hun Tian, who was at the front, turned his head. His eyes turned into chaotic light and stared at Lin Xian, causing the void around Lin Xian to shatter. Yen Ruyu, Morong Qingqing, and the others also looked as if they were facing a great enemy. The two of them snorted coldly and emitted a terrifying aura, causing countless people to exclaim. These two people were extraordinary as well. They were definitely at the Varch level. They should be the legendary successors of the Azure the Arch and Jade Lake. More exclamations sounded. These two were also legendary figures. They didn't expect that they would also come. This Lin Wuti was really lucky. Many people were envious. However, Lin Xian frowned. He snorted coldly and released an even more terrifying light. The illusion of the sun swept across the sky, resisting the other party's chaotic aura. "You want to compete with me?" he asked coldly. "The 9-yang divine body is not bad. I didn't expect you to cultivate it to such an extent." Hun Tian nodded slightly. "However, I don't like your title. Who in the world dares to call themselves invincible? You're too arrogant. To be honest, you don't have the qualifications to compete with me." As soon as these words came out, countless people were in an uproar. They were all stunned. What? Did they hear wrongly? Lin Wuti didn't have the qualifications? What a joke! How terrifying was Lin Wuti's strength. He was the king of the crown, a young supreme being. He had killed a Varch. Such a person didn't have the qualifications to compete? This Hun Tian was too arrogant. That's right, does he know how strong Lin Wuti is? Originally, I thought that the primal chaos body was very strong. Now that I see how arrogant he is, I feel that he might die early. The surrounding people were well aware of the consequences of going against Lin Xian. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes when he heard that. Not qualified? He snorted coldly, and the 6 suns charged out, suppressing heaven and earth. Everyone felt a terrifying power dancing in the air, and their scalps went numb. They felt as if their bodies were about to burn up. Hun Tian let out a cold snort. The primal chaos aura on his body condensed into a primal chaos cauldron to resist the 6 suns. A sky-shaking sound rang out. Endless cracks condensed. The two were evenly matched. You're not that great either. At most, you're tied with the 9-yang divine physique. What qualifications do you have to say that you're not his opponent? Someone in the crowd snorted. There were quite a few people who supported Lin Xian. Hun Tian laughed. "How would ants like you know how strong I am? What did you say?" Many geniuses in the crowd stood up. They were furious. "You dare call us ants? Which one of us who could come here was weak?" However, Hun Tian said arrogantly with his hands behind his back. "The one standing in front of you now is only my incarnation. Who do you think is an ant?" "What? Impossible!" Countless people exclaimed. "This is an incarnation?" They didn't dare to believe it. Even Lin Xian's pupils constricted. In the next moment, an extremely sharp radiance burst out from his eyes. It was a pair of God's eyes. He looked down on heaven and earth. Everyone. They could feel the suppression of their souls. The aura of the primal chaos body. It kept erupting. Lin Xian retracted his gaze, and his face turned cold. It's really an incarnation. He was too shocked. This primal chaos body was too extraordinary. Hun Tian said, "I didn't expect you to have such good taste." "That's right, I'm an incarnation. Because my real body is too strong. When my real body appeared, none of you were my match. Even those emperors were no match for me. So, in order to not let you feel despair, I sent out an incarnation. But even so, my incarnation is able to tie with you young giants. If you're not ants, what are you?" Countless people were stunned. These young geniuses were shocked. The genius of the Golden Crow clan, the successor of the Purple Mansion clan, the powerhouse of the Heavenly Rock clan, and the genius of the Destiny clan were all terrified. Since when had there been such an expert? The elders and powerhouses of the Starfall Immortal platform were also surprised. They looked at Hun Tian in shock. Could it be that the young master was? They thought of a possibility. Hun Tian said proudly, "I'm the Double Crown King." What? Double Crown King? Everyone was stunned. Lin Xian was also surprised. He was crowned as the king of one crown. Not only him, but the Dragon Prince and Kuan Pengzi were also crowned as well. But they knew that being crowned was not the end. There were still Double Crown Kings and Triple Crown Kings. But those were things that hadn't appeared for tens of thousands of years. They didn't expect that a Double Crown King would appear now. Everyone went crazy. This was too unbelievable. Double Crown King. Wouldn't that be above Lin Wudi and Kuan Pengzi? He was even more terrifying than the emperors. Where was he from? Why had they never heard of him? That's right, they had never heard of a Double Crown King. Lin Xian didn't believe it at first, but when he realized that the other party was really just an incarnation, his expression became incomparably solemn. It seemed that things were much more interesting than he had imagined. Double Crown King? I'm looking forward to competing with you. Lin Xian's eyes erupted with an extremely terrifying aura. The sword energy on his body soared into the sky, as if he had turned into a sword god. So what if he was the Double Crown King? It had been many years since he was crowned. The current him was much stronger than when he was crowned. He was still not afraid. In fact, Lin Xian felt that he also had the chance and qualifications to try for the Double Crown King. Therefore, facing the strength of the chaotic body, Lin Xian pointed his sword forward. Hun Tian was very arrogant. He smiled and said, "If you want to challenge my main body, it will depend on your performance." After saying that, he sat there. The scalps of the surrounding people went numb. "Don't worry, this won't take too long." Lin Xian snorted coldly. He had strong confidence. So what if he was facing the Double Crown King? His sword was enough to split everything. Let's go. Lin Xian, Morong Qingqing, Yen Ruyu, and the others found a place, sat down cross-legged and waited. Next, more powerhouses arrived. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky. Everyone felt that their bloodlines were about to freeze. What a terrifying bloodline. It was the emperors. Those who had such a bloodline were definitely the emperors. No one could have a stronger bloodline than the emperors. This was the consensus of everyone. As expected, they saw Yin and Yang appear between heaven and earth, condensing into a fiend godlike figure. It was Kuan Pengzi. Many people exclaimed. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes. Was the emperors here too? Chapter 52-29. Many people in the crowd stared at the other party. The laws of Yin and Yang on his body were even more terrifying. Kuan Pengzi was also looking around. Soon he discovered a few terrifying figures. One of them actually had the aura of primal chaos, which surprised him. But soon he didn't notice it. He noticed Lin Xian. Lin Wudi. His gaze turned into a sharp sword as he looked at Lin Xian. "You're here." Lin Xian also smiled and nodded. Kuan Pengzi also nodded in response. He didn't say anything. Instead, he walked to the side and sat down cross-legged to wait. Previously, when he was fighting with Lin Xian was the first to break through, which gave him pressure. He swore that after he broke through to the Great Sage, he would fight with Lin Xian. But now, although he had broken through, he was in the same realm as Lin Xian. But he didn't make a move because he wasn't confident. Following that, many geniuses arrived. For example, Fire Dragon Girl, and the others also came. Among them, there was a figure who came alone. There was no light on his body. He was dressed in a long robe and strolled leisurely. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. But it made people's hair stand on end. Who was this person? Many people were puzzled. They realized that they didn't know him. He was very unfamiliar. He didn't have a terrifying aura on him. Was he qualified to come here? Many people exclaimed. The people from the Purple Mansion frowned slightly. Qin Xiener and the others exclaimed. Yao Guang, he actually came too? These people's expressions seemed to become a little frightened. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes. He stared at Yao Guang. This person gave him a very dangerous feeling. Although the other party wasn't famous and hadn't even displayed any strength, Lin Xian felt a potential danger. Because the other party cultivated the demonic heaven-devouring technique. This technique was created by the heaven-devouring Great Emperor. It could devour the bloodline and power of other genius experts. He didn't know how many people's power this guy had secretly devoured. He didn't know what level the other party had reached. However, there was one thing that was certain, and that was that the other party had accumulated enough power. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to come out of Yaoguang City. The demonic heaven-devouring art was too terrifying. Once it was revealed to others, he would be hunted down by countless experts. Because every family had threats. Now that the other party had come out in the open, it meant that he already had the qualifications to go against the world. Lin Xian's face was cold as he said to Morong Qingqing and Yan Ruyu beside him, "Be careful, this guy cultivated the demonic heaven-devouring skill. Don't let him set his sights on you." Morong Qingqing and Yi Zichen were also astonished. The demonic heaven-devouring art. Yan Ruyu frowned. It was actually this kind of cultivation technique. This guy should have already practiced it to a certain level. Countless voices of suspicion sounded out. None of them knew who light-shaking realm cultivators were. However, a black light erupted from Yao Guang's eyes. He began to look around. Soon he sighed. Most of them were trash, but there were a few that he was interested in. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding people were furious. Trash. The majority of them. What a joke. Were they being looked down upon? Kid, who are you? Do you want to die? Do you think you're high and mighty? Those who dared to say this before were already dead, unless you were also a double crown champion. Many people stood up. Their auras were as deep as the sea. Even a saint wouldn't be able to withstand it. However, a few vortexes appeared on light-shaking realm's body and swallowed these auras. He stood there without moving at all. They were indeed trash. The surrounding people were shocked. Who was this person? Although he was arrogant, the aura on his body was actually so terrifying. In the face of such terrifying pressure, he wasn't afraid at all. Light-shaking realm didn't care about these people at all. Instead, he stared at a few figures. He stared at Kuan-Pingzi and said with a smile, "Imperial bloodline, I'm looking forward to it." Kuan-Pingzi frowned tightly. Although he didn't know the other party's gaze made him feel very uncomfortable. It was as if he was a prey that was targeted by a terrifying demonic beast. He snorted coldly, and the yin and yang aura on his body erupted to resist. Light-shaking realm retracted his gaze and then looked at Lin Xian, as well as Morong Qingqing and Yan Ruyu beside him. He grinned. Although he didn't say anything, there was a trace of coldness in his eyes. Obviously, if he had the chance, he would definitely swallow these people. "Who are you?" At this moment, Hun Tian spoke in a deep voice. Light-shaking realm also turned around and looked at the other party in shock. Chaotic body? The legendary physique, I didn't expect it to appear now. Indeed, the heavens are treating me well. Light-shaking realm was very happy now. If he could swallow these people, then who in the world would be his opponent? "You want to swallow me?" Hun Tian snorted coldly. "Cultivate for another 10,000 years. I'm a double crown champion," he said proudly. Kuan-Pingzi was also shocked. She didn't come before and didn't know. She didn't expect a double crown champion to appear now. What kind of joke is this? He looked at Lin Xian in disbelief. However, he noticed that Lin Xian's expression was solemn. He gasped. Could it be that he's really a double crown champion? Damn it, what's going on? Why would such a terrifying person appear? Even light-shaking realm narrowed her eyes. Interesting. He sneered and walked to the side. Now he didn't have to hide anymore. Everyone felt a chill down their spines. Next, more people came. They waited for about a day. At this moment, the few elders in front of the Nebula Immortal platform walked out. They said, "It's about time, we're going to open the Starfall Hall." They formed seals with their palms and shot out a terrifying light. The light above the Starfall Hall became even more terrifying. It was as if an ancient divine beast had been revived. An ancient and vast aura swept out in all directions. Everyone could feel the sound of the Great Tao. If they were inside, it would definitely be of great help to their Great Tao. They might even be able to obtain the supreme great Tao. After all, the Yuhua immortal dynasty had more than one great emperor. I'll go first. There were naturally people who didn't want to give up such a good opportunity. The first to walk out was a powerhouse from the Golden Crow race. His body was covered in flames like a sun. He flew forward. Haha, he was very proud. However, when he approached the nebula hall and wanted to take a step in, he was hit by an ancient star. He vomited blood and flew backward. Countless bloody holes appeared on his body. He let out a miserable cry. The Golden Crow fire fell in all directions. The surrounding people were shocked. This Golden Crow's strength was extraordinary. However, he was beaten out. He didn't even have the right to enter? Heavens, this is too inconceivable. At this moment, the surrounding geniuses all took a deep breath. They realized that they had underestimated the Nebula Hall. The Yuhua immortal dynasty was probably more terrifying than they had imagined. The few immortal platform elders stood there with their hands behind their backs. Chapter 52:30. After the expert from the Golden Crow race was defeated, another person went up. This time, the person who attacked was even more terrifying. However, he still did not enter. He was thrown out by the stars and vomited blood. The surrounding people went crazy. One had to know that those who were able to come here were all invited. None of them were weak. Even so, no one could enter. Could it be that the Nebula Hall was so terrifying? Everyone's expression was extremely solemn. They knew that they were careless previously. The next few people were also covered in dust and looked extremely miserable. At this moment, an elder from the Nebula Immortal platform said, "Gentlemen, I think it's best that you show your true abilities." The Nebula Hall had an extraordinary background. Those who could step into the Starfall Hall were all unparalleled experts. At the very least, they would be at the peak of the Great Sage. They might even have the chance to surpass the Sage Realm and reach the Emperor Realm. Hence, I hope that you can take it seriously. Hearing this, the surrounding people's eyes lit up. The Nebula Hall was so terrifying. Some of the top geniuses stood up. They had to enter successfully. Become the peak of the Great Sage? Many people's eyes shone with a cold light. They knew that becoming a great emperor was too difficult. However, becoming the peak of the Great Sage was something they had to achieve. Even so, the peak of the Great Sage was extremely difficult to reach. After all, there were not many old ancestors in each family or sect. However, the number of geniuses was not small. In other words, if 1% of these geniuses could reach the peak of the Great Sage, it was already very heaven-defying. This percentage was not high because it was for the top geniuses. If it was an ordinary person, it might not even be 1 in 100 million. A genius from the Heaven sect walked forward. There was a terrifying Heaven Tao law condensing on his body. In the next moment, he arrived in front of the Nebula Hall. He displayed his ultimate skill. He finally stepped in. Countless people exclaimed. Heavens, he had entered. He was indeed a top genius in the heavens. His talent and strength were indeed strong. He was the first person to enter the Nebula Hall. However, he had only taken 2 steps before he was blasted back, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Everyone was shocked. What was inside? Did he feel the great Tao? The genius from the Heaven sect shook his head and sighed. I felt a mysterious power enter my body. Although I'm injured, once I recover, this energy will be able to increase my strength. Unfortunately, I've already taken 2 steps. If I could stay in there for a bit longer, I'd be able to obtain even more of this mysterious power. Everyone was shocked after hearing this. The Starfall Hall was indeed mysterious and extraordinary. It contained a mysterious power. Someone else asked, "What else is there?" That expert said that there were other halls in the Nebula Hall. I saw a stellar gate, but it was too far away from me. Was Nebula Palace really that mysterious? They looked at the elder of the Starfall Immortal platform. However, those elders only smiled without saying anything. Everything will have to be investigated by yourselves. At this moment, an expert from the Tyrant strode forward. His physique was strong, and his strength was boundless. Everyone looked over. It was the Overlord. The Overlord's physique was extremely terrifying. Everyone held their breaths. Could the other party succeed? Under the gazes of the crowd, the tyrant dynasty walked forward. He entered the Nebula Palace. Countless people cried out in surprise. As expected of the Overlord, he was indeed strong. Was he the legendary Overlord body? Sounds of discussion could be heard one after another. The Overlord entered the Nebula Palace and continued walking inside. With every step he took, he felt his body shaking. Finally, he came to the Stellar Gate. He pushed it open and entered the second hall. In the next moment, he felt that his surroundings were extremely dreamy. He wanted to walk inside. After taking 3 steps, he retreated, his face extremely pale. Did the Overlord come out too? Countless people were shocked. However, the Overlord shook his head and sighed. This was the Supreme Tao. He felt that the laws in his body had become stronger than before. The surrounding people were shocked. It couldn't be. He had only taken a few steps, and his laws had become so terrifying. They sucked in a breath of cold air. The Nebula Palace was indeed mysterious. Those from the Earth sect also surrounded him. Those from the Tyrants also asked, "How was it?" The Overlord said that there was indeed a second hall inside. I pushed open the Stellar Gate, but after taking 3 steps, I came out. In a daze, I seemed to have seen a third Stellar Gate. Countless people were shocked. There were many halls in the Nebula Palace, and they didn't know how many were in the end. Seeing that the Overlord's laws had increased so much, the others were also moved. They moved quickly. However, most of these geniuses were rejected at the door. A few entered and could only take a few steps. The Overlord was the only one who entered the first hall. Heavens, it had to be the legendary physique or the Emperor's son who made a move. Countless exclamations were heard. At this moment, another person stood up. There was a terrifying light on his body. There were golden wings on his back. They flapped gently and tore apart the sky. It was him, the #1 genius of the Tianpeng race. Countless exclamations were heard. This was a figure comparable to the Emperor's son. Could he succeed? Bailey Wuck walked forward. His strength was much stronger than before. Therefore, he entered the Nebula Palace easily. He even opened the first Stellar Gate and entered. Not long after, another rumbling sound came from inside. He entered the second Stellar Gate. The surrounding people exclaimed. It was too terrifying. As expected of the Tianpeng race. Was he even more terrifying than the tyrant body? Would he be able to continue? Everyone exclaimed. However, not long after, Bailey Wuck also came out and entered the second hall. Moreover, he stopped inside and had no chance to enter the third hall. However, the laws on his body had increased. He was much stronger than the Overlord. Obviously, the deeper he went, the more benefits there were. Everyone looked at him with envy. These people's strength had increased. Moreover, it meant that their bloodlines and talents were top-notch. It would not be a problem for them to become the great sage in the future. One had to know that these were all patriarchs. They were experts who could sweep across the sky. Next, everyone tried again. Most of them failed, but some succeeded. For example, the proud daughter of the Golden Crow race succeeded. She also opened the first hall, and received an increase in her laws. The other top geniuses of the remote antiquity families and peerless sects were the same. Only the top geniuses could enter the first hall. The others were rejected. There were even fewer people who entered the second hall, except for Bailey Wuck. There was only one person, Yin Yu. Although she had submitted to Lin Xian, her original identity was extremely terrifying. Chapter 52-31. Until now, no one had been able to enter the third palace, which made everyone exclaim in surprise. They guessed that only the true Tharch could do it. They all looked at Kuanpengzi. Because this was the only Tharch that had appeared so far, they wanted to verify it. Kuanpengzi took a deep breath and stood up, preparing to head forward. Everyone looked at him. Kuanpengzi, surrounded by the laws of yin and yang, strode forward like a god of yin and yang. Effortlessly, he entered the Starfall Hall and the first Palace Hall. Then he entered the second palace. Everyone exclaimed. He was too powerful, as expected of the Tharch. He was so relaxed. One had to know that it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for others to enter. Most people couldn't even enter the door of the palace, but the Tharch was strolling casually. The gap was too big. Everyone held their breaths. Could the Tharch go to the third palace? Flawless Bailey, Yunue, and the others all became nervous. The others were even more focused on them. Kuan-Pengzi took a deep breath and stretched out his palms. The laws of yin and yang surrounded them, turning into a Kuan-Prung phantom that soared into the sky. He blasted open the third starfall door. He strode into the room. Countless people exclaimed in surprise. Heavens, he really went in. The surrounding people went crazy. After entering the third palace, Kuan-Pengzi felt an even more mysterious power. However, when he wanted to enter the fourth palace, he was blocked. The fourth starfall door was right in front of him, but he couldn't open it. Helpless, Kuan-Pengzi could only sit cross-legged in the third palace and start cultivating. In the end, he walked out himself. The others were shocked. The gap was too big. Even Flawless Bailey, Yunue, and the others could only look up. They were blocked in the second palace, but the other party entered the third palace. They were forced to fight in the second palace, but the other party could cultivate in the third palace. Was this the Tharch? He was above them. It was too shocking. Who else could go? After all, Kuan-Pengzi was the only true Tharch that had appeared so far. Of course, there were still a few who had the combat strength of a Tharch. Could those people do it? Gu Feng snorted coldly, and his figure drifted forward. In the blink of an eye, he entered the first level of the Starfall Immortal Palace. Countless people exclaimed in surprise. He was Gu Feng. He was too powerful. In a blink of an eye, Gu Feng entered the second level of the hall. Soon he also entered the third floor of the palace. He did it. Another person had done it. He wasn't any weaker than the Crown Prince. The corners of the Gu clan's mouths also curled up into a smile. This was great. Gu Feng could be considered the #1 genius of their clan. After practicing the martial monarch's ancient scriptures, he was not any weaker than Kuan-Pengzi. This made them happy. However, the fourth spatial gate still blocked him outside. Gu Feng sat down cross-legged and began cultivating. Next, Leaf Daodinier made his move. He had a holy body and cultivated the great emperor's ancient scripture, so he had also reached the third hall. Cultivating there. Everyone was shocked. They looked around. There were not many who could stand shoulder to shoulder with these three people. They looked at Lin Xian. He could definitely do it. Then, they looked at the chaos body, Hun Tian. This person should be even stronger because he was the double champion. However, they also knew that the real Hun Tian hadn't come out yet. This was just a clone, but even so, it should have Emperor's battle prowess. They wondered who would go up first between the two of them. Countless people were paying attention. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and looked at Murong Qingqing and Yan Ruyu beside him. He said, "The two of you should give it a try too." The two women walked out, causing countless people to look up at them. So beautiful. These are two fairies. Can they do it? Soon, they found that not only could the two of them, but they also reached the third floor. Everyone was shocked. They were crown princes. Were all the women around Lin Xian so terrifying? How terrifying would Lin Xian be? At this moment, a black-robed person walked out from the crowd. She stretched out her jade-like arm and walked forward. Her hands danced, tearing apart heaven and earth. Finally, she arrived at the third hall. Countless people exclaimed. Who was this? They had never seen her before. Some people said that she was a genius of the Heavenly Snake clan, Kai Lingyi, who also had the battle prowess of a crown prince. She was really too powerful. The people around were amazed. However, they were even more expectant. Who could ascend to the fourth floor and surpass everyone? They looked at Lin Xian again. Before Lin Xian could move, another person stood up. It was Hun Tian. He took a step forward, and a chaotic aura spread in all directions. His speed was even faster, and like lightning he arrived at the third hall. He rushed towards the fourth hall. This time, even Kuan-Pengzi, Yi Wu Dao, and the others were nervous. Could this guy do it? Boom. Boom. An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the fourth astral door shook violently. The starlight above scattered down on heaven and earth. However, it did not open. Instead, Hun Tian was pushed back. Some people sighed. Even he couldn't open it? Some people said that it was not necessarily. This was just a clone. If his main body came, he should be able to open it. However, it seemed that his clone couldn't. As expected, the fourth astral door was too mysterious. Even the crown prince couldn't open it. Gu Feng snorted coldly. Your main body might be able to open it, but you want to open it with a clone? Stop dreaming. Kuan Pengzi also shook his head. I don't believe that your clone is stronger than the crown prince. That was indeed the case. Even if the other party was the double crown prince, so what? The other party's clone couldn't surpass the crown prince. Damn it! Hun Tian roared angrily. He returned to the third hall and said coldly, since my clone can't open it, no one can. His voice was extremely confident. The others were shocked. Was no one really able to open the fourth astral door? They were desperate. Next, some people tried again, but many people couldn't even open the first astral door. Not to mention the fourth astral door. Do you think Lin Wudi can do it? I think it's possible. Many people were looking forward to it. Some people said that it was impossible. No matter how strong Lin Xian was, he was still stronger than the crown prince. However, they didn't think it was possible for him to surpass the crown prince. At most, he would stop in front of the fourth astral door. Many people were discussing. At this moment, a person walked out. He narrowed his eyes and said, a bunch of ants, let me open the astral door. It was a light-shaking realm cultivator. Countless people exclaimed. Some people who knew the other party's background frowned. This person was very dangerous, but they didn't know what level the other party had reached. Perhaps this time, they could deduce the other party's cultivation and strength. They were all paying attention nervously. Chapter 5232. Yao Guang's speed was also very fast. He arrived at the third palace and looked at the astral door in front of him. With an angry roar, endless vortexes appeared on his body. One after another, terrifying blood-colored auras filled the air. Boom! With a punch, the sky shook and the earth shook. Everyone felt their blood boil. This punch was too terrifying. What kind of fist technique was this? However, the overlord's expression changed. Tyrant Azure Fist. Damn it, how do you know this thing? Everyone sucked in a cold breath. What? Tyrant Azure Fist. Wasn't this the fist technique of the Overlord clan? How did this guy know it? Many top geniuses' expressions became incomparably solemn. Did he devour someone from the Overlord clan? And he wasn't an ordinary person. The Overlord's expression was even more unsightly. The Tyrant Azure Fist was incomparably terrifying. In the hands of Yao Guang, it was also incomparably terrifying. The astral door shook violently, and the starlight on it dimmed. Boom! He threw out 9 punches in a row. The Tyrant Azure Fist was incomparably terrifying, and a crack appeared on the astral door. Everyone was stunned. Could it be that this guy was really going to go in? However, the moment the door opened, the aura inside was incomparably terrifying. It made everyone's hair stand on end. Yao Guang naturally felt it too. He took a step back. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying light soared from his body. He turned into a phantom and charged forward like a giant. Boom! With a punch, it was as if a god had descended. It was incomparably terrifying. What kind of fist technique was this? This was no longer the Tyrant Azure Fist. Countless people cried out in alarm. Yi Wudao's expression became ugly. He suddenly stood up, and a terrifying light burst out from his eyes. Behind him, the phantom of an immortal king roared towards the sky. Everyone was stunned. Why was it so similar to the one behind Yao Guang? Heavens, this is the Yi clan's bloodline, right? How did he know it? Lin Xian frowned tightly. This guy even devoured the Yi clan's experts? The others were even more surprised. Yi Wudao's expression became ugly. He said that 2 of the Yi clan's sage lords had mysteriously disappeared. Could it be that they were assassinated by this guy? Damn it. The other experts' scalps tingled. This Yao Guang was too terrifying. He would definitely be a peerless enemy in the future. Yao Guang's lips curled into a confident smile. He unleashed the power of the Yi clan's bloodline and moved quickly. Once again, he opened the stargate in front of him. A ray of multicolored light flew out from within. enveloping heaven and earth. Heavens, he really opened it. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. At this moment, even the expressions of Kuan Pingzi, Gu Feng, and the others turned serious. Hun Tian snorted coldly. This guy had actually devoured so many experts? Humph, but he's still a dark one. He can't come out in the open. If my true body was here, I could easily suppress him. Hun Tian's eyes shone with a cold light. However, the others didn't think so. After all, Hun Tian was the double champion. He had the right to be arrogant. But the others didn't. Even people as strong as Kuan Pingzi and the others had ugly expressions. What they couldn't do, Yao Guang had done. Could it be that the other party had already surpassed them? The fourth starry gate was opened. The supreme aura inside was even more terrifying. Yao Guang was overjoyed. If he could enter, then he would obtain even more fortunes. Thinking of this, he walked forward. However, just as he lifted his foot, the smile on his face froze, because he couldn't get close at all. Damn it, what's going on? He roared crazily. The others were also stunned. What had happened? Soon, they found that Yao Guang couldn't enter. Although the fourth starry gate was open, he couldn't enter. This scene was incomparably strange. It was as if there was an invisible hand blocking Yao Guang. No, damn it. Yao Guang roared crazily and used all kinds of supreme techniques. They were all top-tier supreme techniques. Some of them were bloodline supreme techniques that he had devoured experts to form. Some were supreme techniques that he had obtained from the Purple Palace realm. These were all supreme techniques of other clans and sections. At this moment, they were all used by Yao Guang alone. It was so shocking that the other experts were terrified. Yao Guang seemed to know everything they knew. This person was too terrifying. However, even so, Yao Guang couldn't take a step forward. In the end, he could only stand there and look at the fourth starry gate. He roared crazily. Damn it. Not enough. I'm not strong enough. He suddenly turned around, and an extremely terrifying light burst out from his eyes. It was as if they had turned into two black vortexes that enveloped the world. At this moment, the sky around the starry gate darkened. Many people felt their hair stand on end. Yao Guang stared at Kuan Pingzi, Hun Tian, Yi Wudao, and the others. After devouring you, I can enter the fourth starry gate. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Yi Wudao, Kuan Pingzi, and the others' faces were completely gloomy. Damn it, this guy wants to devour us? What a joke. You can try. Yi Wudao stepped forward, and the phantom of a nine heavens immortal king roared at the sky. Kuan Pingzi snorted coldly. The yin and yang laws behind him were incomparably mysterious. Hun Tian was even more furious. Who do you think you are? How dare you devour me? My main body will come and suppress you with one hand. Just you wait. One day, you will all be devoured by me. Yao Guang sneered and sat cross-legged in front of the starry gate. He began to absorb everything. Seeing him cultivate, everyone's heart sank. Morong Qingqing and the others also had cold expressions. It seemed that they had to think of a way to get rid of this guy. Otherwise, these top geniuses would be in danger in the future. Finally, Yao Guang also came out. The laws on his body had a mysterious aura, and it seemed to have improved a lot. This caused the surrounding people to retreat. Yi Wudao, Kuan Pingzi, and the others felt their hair stand on end. Hun Tian narrowed his eyes and sneered. You cultivate the demonic heaven-devouring art, right? This cultivation technique has been a taboo martial art for hundreds of thousands of years. No one is allowed to cultivate it. But you dare to cultivate it? Why don't you cripple your own cultivation? He shouted coldly, and the others' bodies shook. What was the demonic heaven-devouring art? Taboo martial art? Was it terrifying? Kuan Pingzi said coldly. The demonic heaven-devouring art specialized in devouring the bloodlines of other top geniuses and experts, and turning them into his own. It could be said to be an extremely terrifying martial art created by the heaven-devouring Great Emperor. Back then, the heaven-devouring Great Emperor had fought against everyone in the world alone, and he had killed his way out. But later, this cultivation technique was sealed by everyone because it was too terrifying. He would step on the corpses of countless experts and geniuses to reach the peak. No one has cultivated it for hundreds of thousands of years. I didn't expect you to dare to cultivate it. When these words came out, countless people were in an uproar. It was such a terrifying cultivation technique. No wonder he knew the tyrant's martial art and had a similar bloodline to the Yi family. He must have devoured the experts of the two great families. Sure enough, the tyrant snorted coldly. How dare you attack the tyrants? Yi Wudao also snorted coldly. Cripple your own cultivation. Gu Feng, Bailey Wuk, and the others walked up and targeted Yao Guang. They had no choice. The cultivation technique that the other party cultivated was a threat to all of them. Who knew when the other party would kill them? Chapter 52-33. The surrounding people were also in an uproar. Even the two elders of the Starfall Immortal platform frowned. They naturally knew about the demonic heaven-devouring art. They didn't expect this person to cultivate such a cultivation technique. They didn't stop him, but they didn't attack. Instead, they watched coldly. What, you want to attack me? Yao Guang sneered. At this moment, Kuan Pingzi suddenly attacked. Yi Wudao also attacked. Even Hun Tian used a terrifying divine ability. They all attacked Yao Guang. Everyone knew that Yao Guang was done for. No matter how terrifying his opponent was, he couldn't stop so many imperial princes. Yao Guang's body suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was high in the sky. It looked down and laughed coldly. You can't kill me with just your strength. Gu Feng's pupils constricted. Spatial divine ability. You even swallowed my Gu clan's people? His expression became ugly. Haha, that's right. Yao Guang laughed. That's why I dared to come out. Now that I've mastered spatial divine abilities and my bloodline isn't weak, it's impossible for you to kill me. If I want to leave, no one can stop me. Many people despaired. With such a powerful enemy, no one would be able to subdue him in the future. Gu Feng stood high in the sky. Suddenly he looked at Lin Xian and sneered. You're not going to attack? He found that Lin Xian was just standing there, and didn't seem to attack him. Lin Xian stood up and said, No rush. It won't be too late to attack you after I enter the fourth astral door. You? Gu Feng was stunned. Then he sneered. No one can enter the fourth astral door. Even I can't do it, let alone you. Unless this guy's main body came, but it would be too late. Hun Tian snorted. Although he was angry, he had to admit that the other party was right. No one could enter the fourth astral door. You can't do it, but that doesn't mean I can't. Lin Xian's expression was calm as he walked forward. The surrounding people also stopped and didn't attack. They also wanted to see where Lin Xian's confidence came from. Lin Xian leisurely strolled into the first palace, and soon arrived at the third palace. He walked forward. The fourth starry gate in front of him had already closed, emitting a mysterious and unfathomable aura. Everyone became nervous. Could this guy do it? To be honest, they were also nervous. After all, Yao Guang was the only one who had done it so far. Furthermore, the light-shaking realm had only been able to do so after devouring countless experts and even the bloodlines of emperor bloodlines. It could be said that just from this point alone, he was already much stronger than Kuan Pengzi and the others. Although Lin Xian cultivated the Imperial Sutra, could he really open the fourth stellar gate? Lin Xian arrived in front of the fourth astral gate. He could feel a mysterious power. In the next moment, he punched out with the 6 Dao fists, and a terrifying aura blasted forward. He pressed forward courageously, causing the starry gate to shake. The light on the gate of stars dimmed, but it did not crack. Lin Xian didn't care. He pushed his divine body to its limits, and the terrifying flames on it soared into the sky. The 9 Yang divine palm slapped forward, pushing forward. At this moment, the entire Nebula Palace shook violently. Boom, 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 boom. Countless explosions sounded, and the fourth stellar gate was slowly opened. Everyone exclaimed, Too strong. Was the 9 Yang divine body already so strong? Yi Wudao and the others were also shocked. He was extremely surprised by Brother Lin's physique. The Golden Crow race was even more terrified. They could feel the powerful sun energy on the divine body. There were also some light purple flames. Those flames made them extremely terrified. Lin Xian's 9-yang divine body had fused with the purple yang divine fire, so it had become abnormally terrifying. He only used the power of his physique to open the fourth stellar gate. He really did it. Kuren Pingzi and the others were shocked. Yao Guang's face turned ugly. He said that no one could do it, but now Lin Xian did it. Hun Tian furrowed his brows. Did another person do it? It seemed like he had underestimated the other party. He didn't expect such an interesting person to appear. 9-yang divine body and heaven-devouring demonic art. These two people were worthy of his main body making a move. Yao Guang snorted coldly. So what if you open it? At most, you will be on par with me. You won't be able to enter. The others were also nervous. Morong Qingqing and the others were pale. Yes, opening it didn't mean that they could enter. When they opened it, they felt an incomparably terrifying aura. Even the two elders from the Nebula Immortal platform were excited. They looked forward and said loudly, if they could enter the fourth stellar gate, then there was a trace of hope to reach the Emperor realm. When these words were said, countless people were in an uproar. Reach the Emperor realm. Could it be that they would become an Emperor realm? Heavens, the fourth stellar gate was so important. The elder from the Nebula Immortal platform said that there was such a possibility, but it didn't mean that they would really become an Emperor realm. Although that was the case, it was already very shocking, because the others didn't even have a chance. Kuan Pingzi and the others gritted their teeth. Didn't this mean that he couldn't become an Emperor realm? Damn it! Was his limit only the peak of the Great Sage realm? He wasn't willing. Gu Feng and the others also had ugly expressions. Hun Tian snorted coldly. If my main body was here, I would definitely be able to enter the fourth stellar gate and obtain a trace of hope. Yao Guang's expression was even more serious. My strength isn't enough. I need to devour a few emperors. This way, I will be able to enter the fourth stellar gate. Then he looked at Lin Xian. Could that kid do it? Although he didn't believe it, he still had to pay attention. At this moment, everyone was paying attention to Lin Xian. Lin Xian also took a deep breath. If he walked forward, he would have the hope of becoming an Emperor realm. Although it was only a hope, Lin Xian wouldn't miss it. The 9-yang divine flames on his body became even more terrifying. 6 suns and even the yin-yang taiji diagram appeared and revolved in front of him. Lin Xian walked forward. In the next moment, he felt a huge pressure. It was as if a pair of invisible hands had stopped him. Now he finally understood why Yao Guang was so angry. The reason for that was because there was indeed a mysterious power blocking his path. He shouted coldly, and an extremely terrifying killing intent erupted from his eyes. Kill! With an angry roar, the demonic aura on his body surged into the sky. It was as if he had transformed into a demon god, incomparably powerful. Boom boom. An earth-shaking sound rang out, as if two heavenly gods were fighting. The invisible power was bombarded by Lin Xian, emitting tens of thousands of thunderbolts. At this moment, everyone became nervous. Yao Guang was even more nervous. Previously, he couldn't achieve this effect. But this kid could. Damn it, was the other party stronger than him? But so what if he was stronger? He didn't believe that the other party had the possibility of becoming an emperor. Lin Xian could feel that the demonic aura on his body was being suppressed. He shouted angrily, and all kinds of ultimate techniques and laws appeared one after another. Lin Xian forcefully tore open a path. At the same time, an extremely terrifying light erupted from his eyes. No one can stop me from walking the path I want to walk. Heaven-splitting sword. Chapter 52-34. The sword was so sharp that it split the heavens and earth. The formless hands in front of him were also torn apart. Lin Xian took a step forward. He entered the fourth palace. Heavens, he did it. He really did it. Countless exclamations sounded. Everyone went crazy at this moment. Impossible. Gu Feng roared crazily. Kuan Pingzi's face turned ugly. Yao Guang's eyes were filled with killing intent. How was this possible? He actually went in. Could it be that he really had a chance to become a great emperor? Damn it, his talent was too good. The people from the Purple Mansion roared. No, he was from the Immortal Graveyard. How could he do this? That's great. Morong Qingcheng was overjoyed. Yen Ruyu also heaved a sigh of relief. Fire Dragon Lady and the others were even more excited. They had always supported Lin Xian. They did it because Lin Xian had a chance to become a great emperor. Now Lin Xian finally showed such talent. He entered the fourth starry door and had a chance to become a great emperor. Did he really succeed? Even the two elders on the Nebula Immortal Plateau were stunned. To be honest, they didn't believe that anyone could succeed. After all, the possibility of becoming a great emperor was already very heaven-defying. Many old ancestors and great sage had lived for thousands of years, but they didn't have such a chance. Now it was happening to a young man. They couldn't stop staring at Lin Xian. When Lin Xian entered the fourth palace, he also felt a mysterious aura. The great path around him kept tumbling. It was so magical. Lin Xian looked around curiously. At this moment, he realized that the front seemed to have turned into a starry sky. This was no longer a palace. It had turned into a galaxy of stars. Lin Xian stood in the universe. This feeling was too magical. Lin Xian continued to walk forward. However, the further he walked, the greater the pressure he felt. In the end, his sword energy was shattered. The laws on his body also cracked. He retreated and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, at this moment, a demonic shadow formed behind him. The demonic figure stood there quietly, holding the world in place. Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief as the pressure around him lessened. He walked forward for a while, sat down cross-legged, and began to cultivate. Countless people were waiting. Among them, the imperial princes were still in shock. They were all young giants. Even if there was a gap between them, it wouldn't be too big. Even someone as powerful as a light-shaking realm cultivator hadn't been able to enter the fourth layer, but someone had actually managed to do so. Lin Xian Lin Wudi. Many people were worried, and some of them even had killing intent in their eyes. When he came out, it seemed like someone wanted to make a move. Lin Xian sat there cross-legged. The laws on his body became incomparably mysterious. He was cultivating. At the same time, he opened the sword world. The stars here were so mysterious, they could provide the sword world with the power of the stars. After he opened it, the sword world began to absorb endless starlight, turning into a river of stars that spiraled in the sky. However, the power absorbed by the sword world was truly too much. In the end, endless nebulas churned in the fourth layer of the palace. Even the entire nebula palace began to shake violently. The people outside were still waiting. When Lin Xian came out, someone wanted to make a move. Suddenly, the nebula palace in front of him shook violently. A terrifying light erupted, and a terrifying aura swept through the world. Many people were sent flying, vomiting blood. What was going on? The others also reacted and retreated one after another. It was as if they were facing a great enemy. They looked forward. The two elders on the Nebula Immortal platform were also stunned. What happened? They had never encountered such a change before. Damn it, what did that kid do inside? I don't know. Quickly. Report to our palace master. The two elders quickly transmitted their voices. Not long after, the void split open, and a few figures walked out. Their auras were even stronger. There were even peak great sage cultivators who came. After these people arrived, their pupils constricted. What was going on in the Nebula Palace? Reporting to Palace Master, we don't know. The Palace Master of the Starfall Immortal Platform was an extremely terrifying existence. His eyes erupted with a cold starlight as he stared fixedly at the Starfall Immortal Palace. His gaze pierced through the universe, wanting to see the situation inside. However, he discovered a demonic figure standing there. It suddenly turned around and shattered his gaze. He closed his eyes and took a few steps back. His expression became incomparably ugly. There were even tears of blood flowing down from his eyes. Palace Master, what happened to you? The surrounding elders were incomparably nervous. Even their Palace Master was injured. The others were in an uproar. Someone said that an accident had happened in the Starfall Palace. That Lin Xian wouldn't have died inside, right? It was extremely possible. The moment these words came out, many people's eyes lit up. Gu Feng sneered. It would be best if he died inside. Yao Guang's eyes flickered. If the other party died, he must obtain the other party's corpse and swallow Lin Wudi. He might become a double champion. At that time, he would sweep through the world. Who would be his match? Morong Qingqing and Yan Ruyu became nervous. They came to the front and said, "Greetings, seniors. Is Brother Xian still inside? Is he in danger? What happened in the Starfall Palace? Seniors, please take action." The Starfall Palace master still had his eyes closed. He said, "Is the person inside your friend?" Morong Qingqing nodded. That's right, he had already entered the fourth palace. However, they didn't expect such a change. What? The fourth palace. The new elders were also shocked. Didn't that mean that the brat had the possibility of becoming a great emperor? Who was he? His name was Lin Xian Lin Wudi. Yan Ryu said. The eyes of Lin Wudi and the other elders flickered. The Starfall Palace master was also shocked. I have his information. He is an incredible person. However, he is someone from the immortal graveyard. How could he come here? Moreover, he has the possibility of becoming a great emperor. That shouldn't be. The people from the immortal graveyard couldn't even become saints. How could he have the qualifications to become a great emperor? However, the other party had reached the fourth palace. This miraculous change caused these top experts to be stunned for a moment. Senior, is Brother Xian in danger? Morong Qingqing was nervous. She couldn't help but want to go in. The Starfall Palace master said, "Don't act rashly. Although I don't know why this change happened, I used my divine ability. Just now, I used my great divine ability to take a look. There is indeed someone sitting there cultivating. He doesn't seem to have died." He didn't die. Really? That's great. Morong Qingqing heaved a sigh of relief. Even the great sage said so. Then it must be like this. Thank you, senior. They only needed to wait patiently. When the others heard this, they were extremely disappointed. He didn't die? Then I'll kill him with my own hands. They were still waiting here. Gu Feng, Yao Guang and the others were all ready to kill. Some experts from the Gemini clan and the dragons were also waiting secretly. Chapter 52-35. Everyone was waiting for Lin Xian to appear, but they didn't know that something even more shocking was yet to come. Lin Xian activated Sword World and absorbed the star energy in Starfall Hall, causing a mysterious light to appear in the sky of Sword World. However, the amount of energy required by Sword World was too much. Even the fallen Star Hall was unable to endure the enormous devouring and absorption. It shook violently. At the next moment, a low voice rang out. It was like a clap of thunder, shaking everyone's soul. Then a blurry figure appeared in Starcloud Hall. This figure was abnormally hazy and illusory, but it was incomparably terrifying. It was like a god looking down on the common people. Some people were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They couldn't help but want to kneel down. What was this? Many people were terrified. Overlord roared towards the sky. Bailey Wuck gritted his teeth. Kuanpingzi exclaimed, "Why do I feel a trace of the great emperor's aura?" At this moment, everyone was stunned. What did Lin Xian do inside? Why did such a terrifying change occur? The people of Starfall Immortal Hall were also stunned. What was going on? The Hall Master's pupils shrank. Could it be that this was an illusion of the ancestor? Heavens! Those elders also exclaimed. He could actually summon the illusion of the ancestor of Starfall Immortal Hall. Starfall Hall was a supreme treasure of their immortal foundation. It was extremely mysterious and was built by their ancestor. And their ancestor was someone from the Yuhua Immortal Dynasty. The Yuhua Immortal Dynasty back then wasn't something that could be compared to now. It was someone who stood at the peak of the universe. How terrifying was such a person? Later on, the Yuhua Immortal Dynasty was destroyed and sealed. Many immortal foundations were formed. Their Starfall Immortal Foundation was one of them. They had always been in control of Starfall Hall. Legend had it that Starfall Hall contained the secrets left behind by their ancestor. However, only those who could summon the illusion of their ancestor would be able to obtain the supreme secret. They had been trying for tens of thousands of years, but no one had ever succeeded. This made them think that the legend was fake. But now someone actually summoned the illusion of their ancestor. And it was an outsider. This was too inconceivable. Could it be that this Lin Xian had such an inconceivable fate with their Starfall Immortal Foundation? Inside the Fallen Star Hall, Lin Xian was also stunned. The sudden appearance of a figure made him feel as if he was facing a great enemy. He quickly closed the world, but the hazy star figure stared fixedly at the sword world, as if it wanted to enter. However, he did not dare to do so. In the end he sighed. That hazy figure slowly disappeared. However, a ring fell from the sky. It was the star ring. It was incomparably deep, as if it had merged with an entire universe. It floated in front of Lin Xian. Lin Xian was surprised. He used his soul spirit to examine it carefully, and found that there was no danger. He then took it. What exactly happened? Lin Xian didn't understand. However, when he received the star ring, he felt a mysterious aura being emitted from the ring. He seemed to be able to absorb it. It was too mystical. This star ring was equivalent to fusing with the power of the Starfall Hall. In the next moment, Lin Xian felt a pair of invisible hands pushing him away. He knew that he must have used the sword world to absorb too much power, causing a change in the Starfall Hall. In order to protect himself, the Starfall Hall did not allow him to stay here. He bowed deeply toward the void, expressing his thanks. Then he turned around and left. When the people outside saw Lin Xian come out, they cried out in alarm. Was he going to make a move? Their eyes flickered. Gu Feng, Yao Guang and the others prepared to make a move. At this moment, the people from the Starfall Immortal platform walked up. The one leading them was the Hall Master. The group of them walked forward. Everyone was surprised. Even the Starfall Immortal platform was going to make a move? Many people sneered. They could kill with a borrowed knife. Morong Qingqing and Yen Ruyu were both nervous. They hurried to Lin Xian's side. The Starfall Hall Master said, "Young Master, don't be nervous. We have no ill intentions. Young Master, have you seen our old ancestor? Does Young Master have some sort of relationship with our Starfall Hall?" Voices sounded one after another. Lin Xian was puzzled. Old ancestor? Could it be that hazy figure? Thinking of this, he said, "I've obtained a ring." When they saw that ring, the bodies of the surrounding elders trembled. The vast aura of stars on it was definitely an item from their Starfall Immortal platform. It was very likely that it was left behind by their old ancestor. Thinking of this, an elder instantly stretched out his hand and grabbed forward. This sudden change caused everyone to cry out in alarm. Lin Xian also frowned. The heavenly hand grabbed the ring. But at the next moment, a miserable scream rang out. The hand was broken apart and blood dripped down. The ring spun and flew back to Lin Xian's side. What was going on? The elder who attacked was dumbfounded. The Starfall Hall Master roared, "You were too reckless. Who allowed you to attack?" Quickly apologized to young Master Lin. That elder recovered his arm and lowered his head. "Young Master Lin, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have attacked." The Starfall Hall Master also said, "Young Master Lin, please don't take offense." They were too agitated. Lin Xian was also stunned. Then he smiled. It seemed that this ring was specially made for him. He took it and wore it on the thumb of his right hand. Then he smiled. "It's fine. Was that astral phantom your old ancestor? He was the one who gave me this ring. Do you need me to return it to you?" The Starfall Hall Master shook his head. "No need. Since you've obtained the recognition of our old ancestor, we naturally wouldn't dare to be impudent. From today onwards, you're the young master of our Starfall Immortal platform." The moment these words came out, Morong Qingqing and Yen Ruyu were stunned. Even Lin Xian was stunned. It seemed that he had underestimated the use of this ring. The other elders were also stunned. They wanted to say something, but the Starfall Hall Master said loudly, "In the future, when you see young Master Lin, it's the same as seeing me. If anyone dares to disrespect him, don't blame the Starfall Immortal platform for punishing them according to the sect rules." Yes. Although those elders were puzzled, they didn't dare to disobey the orders of the Hall Master. The surrounding people were in an uproar. What was the meaning of this? Why did Lin Xian become the young master of the Starfall Immortal platform in the blink of an eye? Wasn't this change too great? Some people were gritting their teeth. However, the Starfall Hall Master coldly spoke. Whoever dares to make a move against young Master Lin would be making an enemy out of our Starfall Immortal platform. The moment these words came out, the scalps of the surrounding people turned numb. Although they were powerful, the Starfall Immortal platform was even more terrifying. In addition, this was their territory. For a period of time, no one dared to make a move. The Starfall Hall Master glanced at Lin Xian. Young Master, can you return with us? We will definitely treat young Master well. Lin Xian replied. I still have some things to do. Let's do it another day. He also didn't know what the Starfall Hall Master was planning. Hence, he wasn't willing to go there easily. The Starfall Hall Master didn't mind. Alright then. Young Master Lin, you go ahead and do your things. If you need anything, feel free to come to the Starfall Immortal platform. Chapter 5236. Next, the Falling Star Hall Master sent a few elders to escort Lin Xian and the others back. In addition to the previous warning, no one dared to make a move. However, this matter did spread out. Because it was too unbelievable. In an instant, the entire Yuhua ancient city knew about it. Everyone was talking about it. On the other side, the elders of the Falling Star Immortal platform were also confused. Why did the Hall Master respect that kid? Was he really that powerful? That's right, he's just a young man. No matter how powerful he was. Could he overturn the heavens? That ring was left behind by our ancestor. We must take it back. However, the Falling Star Hall Master said, Shut up. What do you know? When the star ring appeared, I used my bloodline to communicate with it. I even took out the Hall Master's token. However, I couldn't get his approval. However, that Lin Xian got his approval. What did that mean? It meant that our ancestor trusted him and didn't trust us. Get this straight. That's our ancestor, but he trusted an outsider. This meant that Lin Xian must have some secrets. Therefore, we must respect him. A person that our ancestor trusted would never be wrong. Moreover, didn't he enter the 4th floor of the Falling Star Hall? That was the qualification to become a great emperor. He might really become a great emperor in the future. Hearing this, the surrounding elders were also shocked. Although they were the descendants of the Yuhua Immortal Dynasty, at this age, a great emperor was a great emperor. A great emperor was too heaven-defying. It was enough for them to reach new heights. Your Highness, don't worry. We'll treat him with respect in the future. The Falling Star Immortal platform was prepared to respect Lin Xian. However, the other immortal platforms were in an uproar. They didn't understand why the Falling Star Immortal platform had such an attitude. They investigated many ways, but in the end, they couldn't find anything. Even the 9-star immortal platforms were stunned. They asked Lin Xian. Lin Xian smiled but didn't say anything. They could only treat him well. In the quiet courtyard, Lin Xian sat by the lake. He looked at the star ring in his hand and narrowed his eyes. The mysterious star ring and the Falling Star Immortal platform's strange attitude confused him. He had carefully inspected it, and had also asked the Hellfire Dragon to inspect the ring. There shouldn't be any hidden danger. She just wanted to stay by his side. This made him very suspicious. After thinking about it, he felt that it was most likely related to the Sword World. After all, the Hellfire Dragon was so arrogant before. However, after seeing the Sword World, he was unwilling to leave. This showed that this world was incomparably mystical. It was very likely that it would completely exceed Lin Xian's imagination. As for the astral ancestor, perhaps he also knew how terrifying this world was. However, he had already fallen and was unable to enter the Sword World. He could only leave the keepsake ring by Lin Xian's side. Perhaps he wanted Lin Xian to take care of the Starfall Immortal platform. Since that was the case, Lin Xian accepted it without hesitation. In any case, the Divine Union really needed other allies. It would be best if they could form an alliance with the Fallen Star Immortal platform. He could borrow the power of the Starfall Immortal platform to search for fortuitous encounters in the Yuhua Immortal Dynasty. In the future, once he truly became an immortal emperor, he would help the Starfall Immortal Foundation to stand at the peak. Therefore, Lin Xian did not dwell on it. After forming seals with his palms, Lin Xian continued to cultivate. Previously, from the 4th level, he felt that his nomological laws had improved a lot. Now he wanted to consolidate his comprehension of the Great Tao. Although ordinary geniuses were no match for him now, even the Emperor's son was no match for him. However, Lin Xian knew that he could not be careless. The two newcomers, one of them a light-shaking realm cultivator, shocked him. The other party's demonic heaven-devouring technique was improving every moment. If the other party swallowed a few more geniuses, he might surpass him. The other one, who shocked him even more, was Hun Tian. The double champion had appeared. If the other party's original body came, how terrifying would it be? Lin Xian began to cultivate with all his might. His strength was also increasing steadily. In fact, it was not only him. After returning from the Starfall Hall, the young powerhouses and supreme beings all began to cultivate in seclusion. Their strength had also increased greatly compared to before they had come. At the same time, another matter spread. It was about Lin Xian. Previously, the Starfall Hall could test the qualifications to become a great emperor. In other words, reaching the 4th level meant that one had the qualifications to become a great emperor. Although it was only a slight possibility, it was much more powerful than nothing. For tens of thousands of years, no one had been able to reach the 4th level. But now someone had done it. A twinkle brilliance had opened the 4th astral door, which was shocking. More importantly, Lin Xian had really reached the 4th level, which shocked countless people. This guy had the qualifications to become a great emperor. At the same time, a list quickly spread in the ancient city. Yen Ruyu frowned and came to the courtyard with a scroll. She said, "Oh no." Lin Xian turned his head and said, "What's the matter?" Yen Ruyu walked over and opened the scroll. "Take a look." On the other side, Murong Qingqing also came and asked curiously, "What is this?" She realized that there were multicolored lights dancing on the scroll. Lin Xian's name was written in flamboyant handwriting. And only Lin Xian's name was written. Brother Xian. Only him. "What's this?" Yen Ruyu said. "Young Paragon ranking." Young Paragon? Lin Xian frowned. This was something that the Dragon Prince had organized before. However, Yen Ruyu had said that the Dragon Prince from before had only formed a battle in his own name, and he had lost in the end. But it was different now. This ranking had spread throughout the entire Yuhua ancient city, and it was created by the people of the Yuhua immortal dynasty, and it was recorded in history. It wasn't something that only existed now. It had existed tens of thousands of years ago. There were even young great emperors who had entered the young paragon ranking. For example, the Azure Emperor and the Battle Emperor. Your ancestor? Lin Xian was shocked. Yen Ruyu nodded. That's right, my ancestor, the Azure Emperor, had been here before. And he had entered the Starfall Hall. He had even reached the 4th level and entered the young paragon ranking. Later, he really became a great emperor. However, there were very few people who could enter the young paragon ranking. Now the paragon ranking is open, and only your name is on it. What about the others? For example, Yao Guang, Hun Tian, or Kurenpingzi? Lin Xian asked. These people were not weak. They were all at the emperor level. Yen Ruyu said that these people were called young paragons on another ranking. There was a huge difference between paragons and paragons. In other words, this ranking showed that Lin Xian was currently above all the geniuses. He could be said to be the #1 genius. Murong Qingqing frowned after hearing this. This was not good. Wouldn't this make Brother Xian the enemy of everyone? Who was it that was so vicious? Yen Ruyu sighed. It was indeed not good. That was because there were too many old enemies on this list. From now on, all the young geniuses would treat Lin Xian as an enemy. They would even use all kinds of methods to achieve their goal. Chapter 5237. Although Lin Xian had entered the 4th level, it didn't mean that the others didn't have the qualifications. For example, the Double Crown King's main body wasn't here. If his main body was here, there was a high chance that he could enter the 4th level. There was also the Light Shaking Realm, who opened the door to the 4th level. Although he didn't enter the 4th level, As long as he swallowed a few more people, he could definitely enter. These people also had the qualifications to become Grand Elders, but none of them were on the sovereign list. It was obvious that someone didn't want them to go up. Someone was probably targeting Lin Xian. Lin Xian naturally understood this as well. He smirked coldly. Making an enemy of the entire world? What a good method. It was probably those people who did it. He guessed that it was either the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty, the Gu clan, or the Light Shaking Realm. It was even very likely that it was Yao Guang. After all, Yao Guang had displayed the demonic heaven-devouring art that was truly becoming enemies with the world. But now, all the spearheads were pointing at him. Basically, no one cared about Yao Guang. What about Big Brother Xian? Should he clarify? It was very dangerous now. After all, there were too many geniuses in the ancient city. If a few of them worked together, Lin Xian would really be in danger. No need. A sovereign is a sovereign. Why should I be afraid? I really want the title of the #1 genius of the younger generation. So what if I become enemies with the world? Lin Xian's eyes shone with a shocking light. Right, there was one more thing. Yin Ryu said that the deity hall was also here. Lin Xian was also happy after hearing this. Was that so? It had been a long time since he saw them. He would find a chance to see them. Lin Xian decided to finish cultivating first, and then go to the deity hall to take a look. The deity hall was left to him by old Xia. He didn't know if old Xia had returned. Lin Xian and Xia Jiuyo went to the underworld. In the end, Xia Jiuyo left alone, and his whereabouts were still unknown. While Lin Xian was cultivating, on the Clearwood Immortal platform, which was also one of the immortal platforms in the ancient city, belonged to the Yuhua Immortal Dynasty. On a cliff on the clear immortal platform, the scenery was beautiful. A towering pine tree. It had grown for thousands of years. There were two figures sitting on the stone platform in front of him. One of them was dressed in a green robe and had the demeanor of a transcendent being. He leaned against a pine tree as if he was an old man who had ascended to immortality. The other person's aura was hazy and mysterious. He was none other than Hun Tian. Hun Tian looked at the old man in front of him and said, "Senior Qingmu, try the tea I brought back. This tea is carefully cultivated by the Hundun tribe and contains an extremely strong Hundun qi. It was extremely useful for one's comprehension of the Great Path." In front of Hun Tian, there was an exquisite box with a few tea leaves in it. As expected, they were surrounded by a chaotic aura. They formed mysterious runes. At this moment, another woman walked over from afar. She was dressed in green and had an extremely beautiful appearance. She walked over slowly with a teapot in her hand and placed the chaos leaf inside. Suddenly, a terrifying aura of chaos shot up into the sky. The azure-robed woman was shocked. Ancestor Qingmu's eyes were also shining. Previously, he had only heard rumors that the Epiphany leaf contained a mysterious Great Tao. Obtaining one would allow one to comprehend the Great Tao. It was just that he was too mysterious, so he couldn't meet him. But now that I've seen this primal chaos leaf, I've gained a deep understanding of it. Even if it's not as good as the Epiphany leaf, it's not too far off. Hearing this, the corners of Hun Tian's mouth curled up. "Grandpa Qingmu, you're flattering me. It's far from being as good as the Epiphany leaf." Although he said that, his eyes were filled with pride. Ancestor Qingmu picked up the teacup and took a sip. The laws around him danced. He nodded. "Good tea." Hun Tian smiled. "If Grandpa Qingmu likes it, I'll bring more in the future." Ancestor Qingmu said, "This gift is too valuable. I'm afraid I can't accept it." Hun Tian said, "Grandpa Qingmu, you're too humble. You're standing at the peak of the great sage, and are only one step away from the divine emperor realm. If you can't accept it, who can?" Ancestor Qingmu shook his head. "I'm old and there's no hope. My hope is still on you young people. Nephew, you've reached the double crown at such a young age. Such talent is rare. There's a great chance for you to reach the divine emperor realm in the future. Even if you meet those princes, you might be able to suppress them." Hun Tian's eyes lit up. He said, "Although those princes have shocking bloodlines, they haven't experienced any hardships. They're usually protected too well. When they encounter a real battle of life and death, They won't be able to do anything. For example, the Dragon Prince. No matter how heaven-defying his bloodline is, he was still killed in the end. The Kuan Peng, the Purple Qilin, and the Phoenix Girl all have shocking bloodlines, but I don't think they'll be able to reach the Divine Emperor realm in the future. At this moment, the woman who was brewing tea nodded and said, I heard that recently, a terrifying guy has appeared. He cultivates the demonic sky-devouring technique. He has devoured many geniuses and even knows some divine abilities and bloodlines of divine emperors. This person is very dangerous. Even Ancestor Qing Mu's eyes flashed with a cold light when he heard those words. The demonic sky-devouring technique was a divine emperor divine ability. It had been sealed as a forbidden martial art more than 100,000 years ago. No one was allowed to cultivate it. I didn't expect that someone would take the risk. Isn't he afraid of becoming enemies with the world? The demonic sky-devouring technique was strong, but it was an evil technique after all. It wasn't his own strength. Even if he devoured it, it would be difficult for him to reach his peak. Hun Tian snorted coldly. Compared to the demonic sky-devouring technique, I'm more concerned about another person. Speaking of this, his eyes flashed with a hint of sharpness. Oh, who is it? The woman and the old man were both surprised. Hun Tian said. Of course, he was talking about Lin Wudi. He was in the limelight. He had reached the 4th level of Nebula Palace and was qualified to be a divine emperor. He had also successfully made it to the supreme leaderboard. That was enough to suppress everyone else. Hearing this name, even Ancestor Qing Mu fell silent and nodded slightly. This person is indeed in the limelight now. I didn't expect that someone else would be able to make it to the supreme leaderboard. It was said that Lin Wudi didn't have the bloodline of a divine emperor, nor did he seem to be from a powerful family. It's really rare for someone to rise from the ashes and reach such a level, the woman said as she poured tea. Although he's powerful, he hasn't met you yet. If your original body makes a move, you can suppress him instantly. It won't be a problem for you to reach the 4th level. Of course, Hun Tian said proudly, his eyes flashing with confidence. However, he also said that his original body was cultivating a supreme divine ability. He was still in seclusion and couldn't come out for the time being. He was also very depressed about this matter. If his original body came out, who would dare to be arrogant in front of him? At this moment, Ancestor Qing Mu also said. Although he had the possibility of becoming a divine emperor, he was still thousands of miles away from becoming one. Since ancient times, there were very few people who were qualified to become a divine emperor. However, after hundreds of thousands of years, there were still many who were qualified to become one. However, only a few people became divine emperors in the end. There were even some who didn't have a divine emperor in tens of thousands of years. It was too difficult to become a divine emperor. Even Hun Tian understood this point. He said that even if he couldn't become a true divine emperor, if he could take the first step and become a divine emperor, he would be an invincible existence that could sweep across the world. Speaking of this, he changed the topic. Grandpa Qing Mu back then. There was a woman on the Qing Mu divine platform who had unparalleled talent. She eventually reached the peak of the great sage. She even wanted to take that crucial step. However, she was defeated and severely injured. In the end, she died unexpectedly. And that person had a great relationship with the heavenly court. Chapter 52:38. Hearing this, old Ancestor Greenwood's expression changed, and his gaze became gloomy. Hun Tian was right. Before their Greenwood immortal platform, there was indeed a person. That person's talent was too good and countless people looked forward to it. Even if that person couldn't become a great emperor, he would be able to walk out of the sage realm and become a quasi-emperor. He would be able to let their Greenwood immortal platform regain its glory. However, it was a pity that in that era, there was another person who suddenly rose up and swept through everything. In the end, that person fought with their immortal platform's genius. The two fought. In the end, their genius was defeated. That person successfully stepped into the great emperor realm and became a quasi-emperor. In the end, He even broke through and became a great emperor. As for their proud daughter of heaven, after hearing this, she was angered to death. This made their immortal platform feel despair. That was their best chance to rise to glory, but it was interrupted. However, they were forcefully interrupted, and they didn't dare to take revenge at all, because that person became a great emperor, a battle emperor. He was also the last great emperor. After the battle emperor, no one had become a great emperor in all these years. Thinking of these past events, old ancestor Greenwood sighed. There was no need to talk about the past. Hun Tian said, "Our ancestors said that the reason why we couldn't become a great emperor in the past was because of the power of heaven and earth. However, in this era, the world changed greatly and ushered in a golden era for cultivation. This time, there would definitely be someone who could become a great emperor. Many people would even walk out of the sage realm and become quasi-emperors. This was an excellent opportunity." Grandpa Greenwood, don't you want to take revenge? Don't you want to recreate glory? Actually, there's no need for the Greenwood Immortal platform. We just need to work together. That Lin Wudi is definitely not my match. Also, I came here with another purpose, which is to integrate the quintessential world. You also know that the quintessential world has recovered and countless geniuses and experts have appeared. However, it's still lacking compared to the buried Emperor Star. Most importantly, those great emperors were all buried in the buried Emperor Star. Clearly, those great emperors came from the quintessential world. They were our ancestors. Therefore, the graveyard where they were buried is also ours. That place has the inheritance resources and treasures of the great emperors. Hearing this, Ancestor Qingmu's eyes shone with a cold light. Do you have a plan? The tomb of a great emperor was a land of death. Ordinary people could not enter at all. Furthermore, the buried Emperor Star had many emperor races. If they were to go there rashly, it would probably lead to a great battle. Grandpa Aoki, don't worry about that. We are already preparing for it. As long as we integrate the power of the true spirit world, we'll be able to go. At that time, the old ancestor of our primal chaos clan will also go. So what if those monarch clans oppose? Ancestor Qingmu gasped. Was the primal chaos ancestor going to make a move as well? It was too unbelievable. That was because he knew that the old master of the Hundun tribe was no ordinary person. He was an existence that was even more terrifying than them. It was a quasi-emperor. In this world, the peak of the great sage was the old ancestor. He could sweep through everything. This was an era when the great emperors did not appear. Actually, above that were quasi-emperors. Previously, on the buried Emperor Star, a quasi-emperor had appeared and swept through the place, suppressing the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty to the point where they could not raise their heads. In addition to that quasi-emperor, some other ancient clans and sects also had quasi-emperors. However, the number of these quasi-emperors was very small. Usually they would not appear. However, if they really wanted to become a great emperor, then perhaps these legendary figures would appear. Ancestor Qingmu thought for a long time and said, "If the quasi-emperors of the Hundun tribe are willing to help, then we are willing to form an alliance and provide a strong chance of survival." They knew that the Hundun tribe was looking for their immortal platforms because of their strong vitality. If they wanted to enter the tomb of a great emperor, there would be great danger, and they might die. If they brought a shocking amount of vitality, they might be able to return safely. This was also the core value of their Greenwood Immortal platforms. Alright, thank you, Grandpa Qingmu. When I am ready, I will come to pay you a visit. Hun Tianzhan stood up and turned to leave. Looking at his departing figure, Ancestor Qingmu's eyes flickered. The woman beside him also stood up. She said, "Old ancestor, are you really going to join forces with him? Also, are we really going to attack the Heavenly Court again? You are talking about that Lin Wudi, right? Don't worry, we don't need to do anything. Hun Tianzhan will do it." As the Double Crown King, he only received the title of a young powerhouse. On the other hand, Lin Wudi was a supreme being. Hun Tianzhan definitely couldn't tolerate it. He would make a move sooner or later. As for the alliance, we have to make preparations. Lin Wudi can be ignored, but we must enter the tomb of a great emperor. Maybe he was right. In this era, a great emperor was going to appear. Even if we can't produce a great emperor this time, we must produce a boundary emperor. At this point his eyes shone brightly. He had been at the peak of the great sage for 3,000 years, but he couldn't take another step forward. He was once in despair, but Han Tianzhan's words today gave him hope. If he could get an opportunity, then he would definitely be able to take a crucial step forward, to become a boundary emperor. In that way, he could personally restore the glory of the pure cleansing immortal platform. On the other side, Han Tianzhan walked out and left the Greenwood Immortal Palace. His eyes shone brightly as if he had become a king looking down on the world. Greetings, young master. The 4 figures in front of him knelt on one knee. They also had the aura of primal chaos. They were from the Hundan tribe. Han Tianzhan nodded. How are the preparations? Everything is ready. Next, we can go and invite those people. One of them said respectfully. Han Tianzhan nodded. Good. Also, help me contact the people from the 10,000 Dragon Court. I want to cooperate with them. Han Tianzhan knew that to enter the buried Emperor Star, he had to find someone to cooperate with. The 10,000 Dragon Court was a very good partner. He had to get in touch with them in advance. His figure flashed, and he disappeared into the void like a bolt of lightning. The Yuhua ancient city was in turmoil. Lin Xian had been silently cultivating. On this day, he opened his eyes and the laws on his body slowly disappeared. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. He had already completely refined the benefits he had obtained in the Nebula Palace. His strength had also increased compared to before, and even his cultivation base had increased. He was now one step closer to the middle stage of the Great Sage. He prepared to head to the Divine Palace. Seeing that Murong Qingcheng and Yen Ruyu were still in seclusion, he left a voice transmission and didn't disturb them. Instead, he turned and walked outside. He summoned Yinyu. Yinyu was here. At this moment, she was even more mysterious. She was like a high and mighty queen of the 9 heavens. However, when she came in front of Lin Xian, she bowed respectfully. Greetings, master. Lin Xian nodded and said, Come with me. Yes. Not only was he handsome, but his aura was also mysterious. Half of his body was sacred, while the other half carried a gloomy aura. 2 completely opposite powers could perfectly fuse in one person. This was definitely an incredible martial arts legacy. This woman must be the pride of the heavens. However, why would such a person be together with an ant? He felt that it was a pity. Such a person should only be owned by an expert like him. Seeing Xiang Fei's fiery gaze, Yinyu coldly snorted and frowned. He looked at Lin Xian and said, Young master, let's go. Lin Xian nodded and walked forward. Soon, they arrived at the front of the mansion. Everyone, please wait. The guards of the mansion in front walked out and blocked the path. May I know why you are here? Lin Xian said, I want to see Peacock and Xing Tian. The guard in front was stunned. You mean the 2 elders? That's right. Lin Xian nodded. The guard seriously sized up Lin Xian, but he didn't recognize him. He asked, Young master, do you have an invitation? Lin Xian shook his head. The guard said with a cold expression, The 2 elders are very busy. If you really want to see them, tell me your identity and I'll help you line up. Perhaps you can see them in a few months. At this moment, Xiang Fei walked over from behind. You want to see Peacock Fairy? Don't you know her identity? She's an elder, a core elder. Ordinary sacred ground elders aren't qualified to see her, let alone you. Young man, I think you'd better be down to earth. He shook his head with a look of schadenfreude. Then he walked forward. With a wave of his sleeve, he took out a token. I'm Xiang Fei from the 4 Symbols Sacred Ground. Bring me in. Tell Peacock Fairy that I have something to see her about. So it's young Master Xiang. The guards quickly bowed and went to report. Soon, a middle-aged man walked out from inside. He was the leader of the guards. He also walked over with a smile and cupped his fists. So it's Xiang Fei. Please come in. His gaze only fell on Xiang Fei. As for Lin Xian, he didn't care about him at all. Such a person didn't have any status and wasn't worthy of his attention. Brother Jean, I'm here to disturb you again. I wonder if Peacock Fairy has time. I have something urgent to see her about. As he spoke, he walked inside with a smile. Young Master Xiang is here to see Elder Peacock. Elder Peacock is indeed very busy. You also know that she needs to make many decisions. But since young Master Xiang has spoken, I will definitely recommend you. The two chatted and laughed as they walked inside. There were also many guards in the mansion. At this moment, there was a lot of discussion. This Xiang Fei is incredible. It said that he once ate heavenly treasures when he was young. As a result, his physique became extremely strong and possessed the strength of dragons and tigers. Coupled with the body-tempering secret technique of the four symbols sacred ground, his physique is extremely strong. Although it can't be compared to legendary physiques like the Nine Yang Divine Body and Sacred Body, but below that it's definitely the best. I heard that he's wooing our Elder Peacock, but thinking about it, only such a person is worthy of Elder Peacock. Sounds of discussion could be heard. At this moment, they hurriedly shut up because they noticed a few figures walking out from the courtyard in the distance. Among them, the one walking at the front was a woman. She wore colorful clothes and had an extremely beautiful face. At this moment, she was holding a scroll and frowning. Obviously, she was thinking about something. There were some middle-aged men and elders around her. A group of people was walking outside. When the guards on both sides saw them, they hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Elder Peacock. Greetings, Elder Xingtian. This was a group of elders. The others didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Guard John also saw them and hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Elder Peacock. Greetings, elders. Xiang Fei, who was at the side, smiled and waved. Long time no see, Peacock Fairy. Hearing someone shouting, Peacock raised her head and looked forward. In the next moment, her pupils shrank. Her body swayed and she quickly walked forward. Chapter 5240. Long time no see, Peacock Fairy. Xiang Fei smiled and walked over to greet her. He was extremely happy. Did you see that? Peacock is running towards me. This shows how important I am to her. Next, I just need to think of a way. With my handsome looks and talent, I can definitely conquer her. Thinking of this, he was even happier. Soon, Peacock came to his side, but she didn't stop at all. She was like a gust of wind. The smile on Xiang Fei's face froze. His pupils constricted. Damn it, what's going on? She wasn't walking towards him, but was welcoming someone else. Why was he so happy just now? Who is it? He was immediately enraged. Who has more face than me? He wanted to see who dared to be so arrogant in front of him. He suddenly turned his head, and at the next moment, his pupils constricted and he almost jumped up. Because he realized that Peacock was walking towards that kid. That kid was stopped by the guards and couldn't even enter the door. In his eyes, such a person was just an ant. He wouldn't even look at her in the eye. He probably wouldn't be qualified to enter this residence in his lifetime. But now, Peacock was standing in front of the little ant, and she was extremely excited. She was even about to pounce on him. Damn it, who is this kid? The surrounding guards were also stunned. Does this young man have a powerful background? But why don't we know about it? The other elders also looked over one after another. Some of them were puzzled. Peacock came in front of Lin Xian, extremely excited. Young master, is it really you? This is great. Am I dreaming? Xing Tian also strode over. His eyes were red. At the next moment he cupped his fists respectfully and shouted, Greetings, Hall Master. Hall Master, you're back. This is great. Hall Master. The surrounding guards were stunned. Xiang Fei was also stunned. Which Hall Master is he from? Is he from Immortal Foundation? But that shouldn't be the case. He had seen people from Immortal Foundation before. The law of aura on them was very mysterious. He didn't look like this at all. Seeing that the surrounding people were stunned, Xing Tian turned around and shouted coldly, What are you guys waiting for? Come over and greet the Hall Master. Are you guys trying to rebel? Some of the elders walked over with bloodshot eyes and greeted the Hall Master. The others were still in a daze, but in the next moment, they understood that this was their temple master. What? He was the temple master of Deity's Templar. Xiang Fei's eyes widened in disbelief. Previously, he had mocked the other party, thinking that the other party had no status and was just an ant. He could easily crush them to death. But now, the other party was actually the temple lord of the temple. This identity was shockingly high, and it could even be said that it was completely above his. The temple master of the deity's Templar was the holy lord of their holy land. It was not something he could compare to. As expected, he saw Peacock in front of the other party, acting completely different. When he first met Peacock, her attitude was cold and arrogant. She was like a high and mighty goddess. Even if he wanted to meet her, he would have to wait a long time. But now, Peacock was very happy in front of him, even acting like a subordinate. This huge contrast almost made Xiang Fei faint. He was so angry that his face darkened. Seeing this scene, Guard Zhan was also dumbfounded. Previously, he did not pay much attention to Lin Xian, but now he understood that this was their temple master. He quickly ran over and said to the guards, "What are you waiting for? Quickly bow to the temple master." The guards bowed one after another. "Forgive us, temple master, we did not know. Please punish us, temple master." They had previously stopped Lin Xian. However, Lin Xian smiled and said, "It's okay, the ignorant are not guilty." The surrounding guards heaved a sigh of relief. As expected of the temple master, he was indeed magnanimous. The other party was a high and mighty god of the 9 heavens. Why would he lower himself to the same level as ants? Thinking of this, they were even more in awe of the other party. Lin Xian looked at Leader Zhan and narrowed his eyes. He said, "Why are there so many unfamiliar faces?" Leader Zhan felt as if he had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cave after being stared at by Lin Xian. He felt that he had no secrets under the other party's eyes. This gaze was too terrifying. Is this their temple master? He's young, but he's even scarier than the older generation experts. Leader Zhan was immediately frightened and his scalp went numb. He said respectfully, "Reporting to temple master, I just joined the temple recently." Peacock also said that the true spirit world has undergone a great change. The world's strength has recovered, and many geniuses and experts have risen. Therefore, Xingtian and I decided to recruit a group of geniuses and experts. "Young master, you won't blame me, right?" Lin Xian said, "Of course not. Before I left, I said that the two of you will be responsible for the temple's affairs. Speaking of which, you did the right thing. Let's go." Lin Xian waved his hand. Peacock said, "Sixth Elder, send someone to handle this matter. Today, I will stay by young master's side." An old man walked over and took the scroll. He bowed to Lin Xian and left. The others surrounded Lin Xian and respectfully invited Lin Xian in. The scene was empty in an instant, leaving only Xiang Fei standing there in a daze. During this process, all eyes were on Lin Xian. No one was looking at him. They seemed to have forgotten about his existence. "Damn it!" He gritted his teeth and snorted, then quickly left. He had no face to stay any longer. It was too embarrassing. After inviting Lin Xian into the main hall, Xingtian said, "Go and inform everyone to gather in front of the main hall." Guard Zhan went to do it personally. "Don't worry, temple master." He informed everyone as quickly as possible. He also informed them that something big had happened. The guards, young geniuses, and even some of the older generation experts were alarmed. They were puzzled. What's going on? These people came to the front of the main hall. They found that Peacock and Xingtian were standing beside a young man with incomparable respect and admiration. Who is this person? Some people were puzzled. As mentioned before, the temple had recruited a group of geniuses and experts. Many of them became guards and some became elders. Therefore, it was normal that they had not seen Lin Xian before. At this moment, these people were guessing Lin Xian's identity. Peacock stood out and said, "This is the temple master of our temple." "What? He's the temple master?" Countless people were shocked. Those who had just joined were discussing animatedly. They were really too shocked. They had heard that although the temple's matters were managed by Peacock and Xingtian, the real temple master was someone else. It was a young man who was incomparably mysterious. However, he was on the buried emperor star. Now that they saw him, they were shocked. He was too young. Was such a person really the temple master of the temple? However, seeing how respectful Peacock and Xingtian were, they knew that it should not be wrong. However, some of the newcomers were dissatisfied. This person did not look as old as them. Chapter 52-41. Immediately, a genius stepped forward. Elder Peacock, we joined the Divine Hall because of its reputation. Now that the Temple Lord is here, can you show us your skills? That's right. A few more geniuses stepped forward and spoke loudly. If a sect wants to grow, the Temple Lord must be strong. We won't follow a nameless person. The other elders also began to discuss. They knew how strong Peacock and Xingtian were, as well as the Divine Hall's foundation. But they were unwilling to be controlled by such a young man. Peacock frowned at these voices. Xingtian snorted coldly. Damn it. What are these guys trying to do? He wanted to shout, but Lin Xian stopped him with a wave of his hand. He knew he was too young and wouldn't be able to convince the crowd, but he didn't care. Lin Xian stepped forward and looked at the crowd. He didn't say anything, but looked around. The new geniuses and elders weren't convinced. They wanted to see how the young Temple Lord would deal with the situation. They thought he'd be helpless. But they soon realized that wasn't the case. Under Lin Xian's gaze, the crowd fell silent. No one dared to speak. The geniuses and elders were shocked. It was as if an invisible force was suppressing their souls. What's with his gaze? Why is it so scary? It must be a psychological effect. Isn't it just the Temple Lord's identity? I'm not afraid of him. Some geniuses gritted their teeth and glared ahead. Lin Xian said when he saw the silence. I am Lin Wudi, Temple Lord of the Divine Hall. It was a simple sentence, but everyone was stunned after hearing it. Lin Wudi. He's Lin Wudi. What? That was impossible. Which Lin Wudi was he? Is he the Lin Wudi on the sovereign leaderboard? Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at the scene in front of them. Peacock said. That's right, our Temple Lord is the famous Lin Wudi. He's on the sovereign leaderboard and is qualified to be a great emperor. The crowd was in an uproar when they heard this. The new geniuses and elders were completely stunned. They were completely convinced and no longer felt discontent. This young man was simply too powerful. Although they had never met Lin Xian before, they had heard of Lin Wudi's name many times. When they arrived at the ancient Feather City, they even heard that Lin Wudi had reached the 4th layer of the Starfall Hall on his own. His status was above that of the Crown Prince, and he was the only one who had obtained the qualifications to become a great emperor. Such a person would have unparalleled achievements in the future. Even the Crown Prince wasn't a match for him, so who would dare to challenge him? Greetings, Palace Master. Greetings to the Palace Master. The elders and geniuses bowed one after another. This time they were truly impressed. They were even excited. With such a person as the Temple Master, they would definitely stand at the peak of the universe in the future. Lin Xian's eyes scanned the surroundings as a smile appeared on his face. Everyone, cultivate well and fight against the 9 heavens with me in the future. Lin Xian's eyes shone with a cold light. The people in front of the temple raised their arms and shouted, pledging to follow the Temple Master to death. Looking at this scene, Yunyu was shocked. She also came from a top family. Although she was known as the #1 genius in her family, she couldn't convince the rest of the family. There were even many people who wanted to assassinate her and take her place. However, Lin Xian was different now. These people were completely convinced by Lin Xian. When this power gathered together, it would be terrifying to the extreme. Peacock and Xingtian smiled. Their years of hard work hadn't been in vain. They had finally helped Lin Xian a little. Next, the crowd dispersed. Lin Xian, Peacock, and Xingtian gathered together. Peacock said, Young Master, there's a gathering coming up. Do you want to join? Gathering? Lin Xian was curious. What was it? Why hadn't he heard of it before? Peacock said. This gathering was only for the sects of the true spirit world. Young Master had been in the buried Emperor Star all these years. It was normal that no one invited him. Since it was only for the true spirit world, he narrowed his eyes. The current true spirit world was already extraordinary. It could be said to be on par with the buried Emperor Star. Since these people were gathered together, there must be something going on. He said, sure, I also want to see which geniuses have come out of the true spirit world. That's great. Peacock was overjoyed. She looked at Xing Tian and said, Xing Tian, you can stay here. Give your spot to the hallmaster. Alright, hallmaster, this is a very mystical gathering. How mystical? Lin Xian was also astonished. Peacock said that after entering, everyone would hide their identity. Others wouldn't be able to find out unless they revealed their identity. Moreover, this gathering was a small-scale martial arts exchange. It even had an auction as its theme. After entering, perhaps there would be treasures that young master would like. Hide their identity? Interesting. 2 days later, Lin Xian and company set off. Xing Tian stayed behind to oversee the mansion. Lin Xian brought Yin Yu and Peacock to the gathering. The gathering was held in another mansion. Before entering, the people there had already sent over some black robes. Lin Xian and company put them on. They discovered that the black robes could block out vision and soul spirit detection. They were indeed hiding their identity. Interesting. Let's go. The group walked towards the destination. After entering, they discovered that there were many people in black robes. Lin Xian couldn't detect their aura. Similarly, they didn't know who Lin Xian and company were. There was an additional layer of mystery between them. At this moment, Peacock walked towards a pavilion. That was the Sea of Clouds pavilion. She had already booked it. After all, people of their status couldn't sit in the main hall. Every one of them would have their own pavilion. The Sea of Clouds pavilion was booked by Peacock. The Sea of Clouds pavilion was very mysterious. There were clouds rolling around it. Peacock walked forward. However, she was stopped. Gentlemen, please wait. Peacock stopped. She took out a token and said, I have booked this place. Lead the way. However, the guard in front said, I'm sorry. This place is already taken. Gentlemen, please go to other places. Hearing this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. Peacock was stunned. Taken? What a joke. I booked this place 5 days ago. I even paid for it. You actually gave it to someone else? I don't know. The guard shook his head. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked over from afar. He waved his fan and smiled. What's the matter? The guard explained the situation. The middle-aged man listened and said, Gentlemen, please. Let me give you a piece of advice. The people inside have an extraordinary status. I'm afraid you can't afford to offend them. There was a hint of warning in his voice. Peacock was furious. Can't afford to offend them? I want to see who dares to challenge the temple. Chapter 52-42. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted when he saw the token. He had heard of people from the deity hall before. They were extremely extraordinary in the quintessential world. Therefore his attitude changed and he smiled. Greetings, friends from the deity hall. We have not received you well in this matter. I will open another pavilion for you as compensation. Peacock did not say anything. Instead, she looked at Lin Xian. Lin Xian said, There is no need. Since it has already been decided, we will take the Cloud Sea Pavilion. Did you hear that? We want the Cloud Sea Pavilion. This matter is your fault. You can deal with it yourselves. Peacock did not back down. The Divine Union did not need to back down now. Furthermore, Lin Xian had already given the order. She naturally had to carry it out. The middle-aged man frowned when he heard that. The Divine Union was powerful and he could not afford to offend them. However, the people inside were also extraordinary. He could not afford to offend them either. For a moment he was stunned and did not know what to do. At that moment, a few people walked out of the Cloud Sea Pavilion. Who was causing trouble here? These few young people were surrounded by nomological laws. They looked mighty and extraordinary. When the middle-aged man saw them, he could only explain the situation and push them aside. It was better to let these two big sects handle it. The few young people were stunned when they heard that. Were they from the deity hall? Wait. They hurried to report it. Not long after, a few more figures came down. They were all young and outstanding. Their nomological laws were overwhelming. Clearly, They were all geniuses. I was wondering who it was. So they are from the deity hall. I wonder which one of them is it. A man in front sneered. Sword chi was surging from his body. The surrounding void was constantly shattering. It could not withstand this power at all. Jian Xiao. Peacock's face turned cold after she saw that. She lowered her cloak and revealed her beautiful face. This place belongs to the deity hall. Take your people and leave quickly. Oh, it is Fairy Peacock. Jian Zhao's eyes flickered. If Fairy Peacock does not have a place, you can come to the Cloud Sea Pavilion with us. We will take good care of Fairy Peacock. After saying that, he looked at the other two people. Who were these two? Were they also from the deity hall? At that moment, a man walked out from the side. His body was shimmering with the 5 elements. It was very scary. He said, Fairy Peacock, I have heard of your beauty. Now that I see it, you are extraordinary. Fairy Peacock, accompany me for a drink. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and tried to grab the peacock. Peacock frowned and dodged the attack with a sway. 5 Fairy Peacock, Fairy Peacock. Oh my, Fairy still recognizes me. That's great. Peacock, Peacock, Peacock. Peacock's face was cold as she looked at Lin Xian. Humph, you're courting death. Lin Xian snorted. Upon hearing this, Peacock understood. However, before she could make a move, Yunyue, who was beside her, made the first move. A jade-white palm shone with a holy light, as if it was the hand of an angel, and slashed forward. He sent a palm strike at Yuanju. Yuanju was instantly sent flying, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Damn it! You dare to attack me? Yuanju roared and attacked again. 5 elements fist. He threw a punch. The 5 elements combined. It was terrifying. It seemed that the 5 elements sacred land had produced some powerful experts in recent years. Yin Yu sneered. He was as famous as Bailey Wuck and had the strength of an emperor. Therefore, he did not care about the other party's attack. He formed a seal with his palm, turning it into an angel seal. The 5 elements fist was shattered. This time, Yuanju's injury was even more serious. His entire arm turned into a bloody mist. Ah! He let out a miserable cry. The surrounding people were also stunned. They looked at the black-robed figure in front of them and felt their scalps go numb. Who was that person? It seemed to be a woman. That was too terrifying. Even Peacock was stunned. She had always thought that Yin Yu was just Lin Xian's follower. She did not expect him to be so terrifying. The aura he emitted made her feel mysterious. Thinking of this, she smirked and said coldly, Jian Xiao, Yuanju, are you still going to stay here? Jian Zhao's expression was cold. He looked at Yuanju and frowned. He did not attack because the move just now had shocked him greatly. Who was this person in front of him? When did the Temple of God have such a powerful ally? He gritted his teeth. Good, very good. Temple of God. I will remember you. I will not let this matter rest so easily. He snorted and left with his people. Yuanju also stood up and gritted his teeth. Just you wait. The people from the 5 elements sacred land and the sword sect left. The Cloud Sea Pavilion was empty. Lin Xian walked forward. Peacock and Yunyu followed behind him. The surrounding guards made way. They lowered their heads deeply. No one dared to stop them. The middle-aged man was also covered in cold sweat. When he saw the 3 of them enter, he quickly called for the guards and said, Quick, bring me the best spirit wine and food. If you dare to be negligent, don't blame me for killing you. Lin Xian had just entered when the maids came in with exquisite spirit wine and food. They replaced all the previous ones. Peacock waved her hand. All right, you can go outside and wait. The maids all retreated outside. Peacock said that the 2 people from before were from the Sword Sect and the 5 Elements Sacred Land. They were called Jian Xiao and Yuanju. They were also considered top geniuses. Of course, they were not worth mentioning in front of the young master. Chapter 52-43. The people from the 5 Elements Holy Lands also advised Yuanju. That's right, senior brother. You mustn't ruin His Highness Hun Tian's plan. Otherwise we'll all die. Yuanju also took a deep breath. He trembled when he heard the name, Hun Tian. His opponent was the double crown champion. How terrifying was that? He said, "Fine, I'll let those people live for a while longer. At that time, if they dare to resist His Highness Hun Tian, let's see how they'll die." Following that, more people arrived one after another. These people entered the pavilions and palaces and waited. In the evening, these people came out one after another. A banquet was about to be held. Although these people wore black robes and didn't want to reveal their faces, they were still dazzling. However, there were always some people who were radiating brilliance, allowing others to recognize who they were with a single glance. For example, there were people with soaring sword energy, people with 5 elements laws revolving around them, and people with powerful physiques. Every holy land had their own unique techniques, so it was easy to distinguish them. These people stood out because they wanted to show their identity and make others feel reverence. Lin Xian and the others also came down. They didn't have any aura of laws on their bodies, so they walked among the crowd and listened to the news. After all, Lin Xian was very curious about who was condensing the energy of the true spirit world. The other holy lands were also curious, and started discussing spiritedly. Someone said, "Did you see that? The energy that came this time is from the true spirit world. Someone must have done this on purpose." That was indeed the case. This mansion belonged to the Pureness Immortal Plateau, but the Greenwood Immortal Plateau only provided a place for them to stay. Therefore, I'm guessing that someone else is holding this banquet. I heard some people shouting, "Your Highness." Could it be that the young master of the Pureness Immortal Plateau has come? Many people were shocked when they heard this. The Pureness Immortal Plateau belonged to the Yuhua Immortal Dynasty. The young master of the Pureness Immortal Plateau was definitely a top-notch existence. He wasn't any weaker than the Crown Prince. What was the purpose of such a gathering of people? One could well imagine that it was definitely something earth-shattering. There were also people who said, "No, I don't think this Your Highness refers to someone from the Immortal Plateau. It might even be someone else. Didn't you notice that there are many people from the All Beginnings Holy Land? It must be related to them." The All Beginnings Holy Land, cultivated the primal chaos energy. That's not all. Haven't you heard? Previously, during the test at Nebula Hall, a chaotic body had appeared. That was the Double Crown King. His opponent was from the Primal Chaos clan. Do you think the All Beginnings Holy Land is related to them? Could it really be him? Heavens, if it was him, it was really possible. Voices rang out one after another. They all guessed the same person. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes when he heard this. Chaotic body. He snorted coldly. If it really was the other party, then he wasn't unfamiliar with them. Of course, these were all just guesses. No one knew for sure. However, since the other party was holding this banquet, it would definitely appear in the end. The banquet began. Everyone drank and chatted with each other. When the banquet was about to end, a group of people walked over from afar. The person walking at the very front was dressed in a black robe, but his face was hidden. A woman and a man, both of them exuding a terrifying aura, as if they could split the heavens and earth apart. Countless people exclaimed, "The Saint of All Beginnings and the Saint of All Beginnings." The Saint of All Beginnings and the Saint of All Beginnings were just 2 titles. Lin Xian looked up and discovered that they were no longer the people he knew. These 2 people's faces were unfamiliar, but their auras were 100 times stronger than before. They could already be considered peak heaven's prides. The surrounding people also exclaimed in surprise. However, what surprised them was that the Saint of All Beginnings and the Saint of All Beginnings was accompanying a single person. The person walking at the very front was dressed in a black robe. His entire body was shrouded, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. However, since this person was above the All Beginnings Holy Land, his identity could be imagined. Could it be that he was the host of this banquet? Thinking of this, everyone sat up straight and looked ahead. The group of people stopped. Then they sat down. That was the seat of the host. The black-robed person sat in the main seat. The Saint of All Beginnings and the Saint of All Beginnings sat beside him. The other people who had left the Holy Land also sat down. "Fellow Taoist All Beginnings, may I know who this is?" Someone asked. The saint of all beginnings stood up and said, "Everyone, there is no need to be anxious. Let me introduce him to everyone. This person has an extraordinary origin. He is an honored guest of our all beginnings holy land. Speaking of which, he has a relationship with our holy land. He is the young master of the primal chaos race. His Highness Hun Tian." After saying those words, Hun Tian took off his cloak. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they cried out in alarm. Hun Tian. Was it really him? Everyone wasn't unfamiliar with this name. After all, this person was a double crown king. One must know that Kuanpingzi and the others were all double crown kings. Now that the double crown king clan was above their imperial sons, how could they not be shocked? They hadn't expected that it really was him. Not only was he a double crown king, but he was also from the primal chaos race. The All Beginnings Holy Land was already so terrifying just by possessing the aura of primal chaos. The primal chaos race was even more terrifying than the All Beginnings Holy Land. After all, the primal chaos race was a clan that had existed since the creation of the world. How terrifying was that? With such a clan and such a heaven's pride, it was enough to sweep through everything. Looking at the discussions below, Hun Tian swept his gaze across the crowd. Then he gently waved his hand. No one dared to say anything. When Hun Tian stood up, he looked like a god of primal chaos overlooking everything. He said, "It's me." Sure enough, it was him who had gathered them. He was the host of this banquet. However, why had he gathered them? Everyone was curious. Hun Tian sat down again and swirled his wine cup. A strange light flickered in his eyes. Everyone knew that there were two stars in the universe that were extremely mysterious. One was the buried emperor star, where great emperors were buried. The other was the true spirit world, where countless geniuses and even great emperors were born. Now that the true spirit world had recovered, our holy lands and sects were growing stronger day by day. However, we still couldn't compare to the buried emperor star. Furthermore, the treasures that belonged to our clan's experts were all buried in the buried emperor star. Don't you want to explore and obtain them? When these words came out, countless people were in an uproar. Even Peacock and the others were surprised. This guy was so ambitious. What did he want to do? The others also cried out in alarm. Someone asked, "What does His Highness Hun Tian mean?" Hun Tian said, "I want to gather the strength of the true spirit world and go to the buried emperor star to explore the ancient earth tomb." When these words came out, countless people were in an uproar. Peacock was also stunned. She had guessed that Hun Tian was bold, but she didn't expect him to be so bold. His goal was actually the ancient earth tomb. Beside her, Yinyu was also surprised. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. As expected of the double crown king. What boldness! The others were even more shocked. They had guessed countless possibilities, but they didn't expect it to be this. Chapter 5244. What's wrong? You don't dare? Hun Tian shook his head. Although your strength has increased, you are still as cowardly as before. This is truly disappointing. Someone said, Hun Tian Palace, it's not that we are cowards. It's just that this matter is too shocking. We need to think about it properly. What should we think about? Someone said, if you are cowardly, then admit it. We are not afraid. We are willing to follow His Highness Hun Tian. The sword sex people walked over to the side. That's right, the 5 elements holy lands Yuanju also walked over. With His Highness Hun Tian here, there is nothing that cannot be done. We are also willing. In an instant, more than a dozen holy lands and sects walked over and stood on Hun Tian's side. The All Beginnings Holy Lands people had excited expressions. This is great. Hun Tian's lips curled up. His expression was still calm. With his reputation as the Double Crown King, could these people stop him if he wanted to do anything? Everything was under his control. However, there were still people who were hesitating. Although that was the case, the ancient tomb of a great emperor was a land of death even on the buried emperor star. Moreover, there were countless treasures inside. If they went, would the people of the buried emperor star agree? That was indeed the case. Many people on the buried Emperor Star had designs on such treasures. For the time being, they did not dare to make a move. If they went, the buried Emperor Star would probably start a war with them. Hun Tian smiled. You are worrying too much. We are a family with the buried Emperor Star. If we go, we will only join hands with them. We will not become enemies with them. Once these words were said, many people were shocked. From his words, it seemed that Hun Tian was already contacting the people of the buried Emperor Star. It seemed that he had this idea for a long time. It was very likely that he had already set up a big plan. He was just waiting for the right time to activate it. Everyone, if you are still worried, I will let you meet another person. Friends of the dragons, come out. Hun Tian waved his hand, and the aura of primal chaos flew into the distance. A group of people walked out of the palace in the distant sky. The aura of the Tao of Dragons from these people swept through the 9 heavens. The people in the surroundings felt their scalps go numb. What a terrifying bloodline power. Yin Yu cried out. It was the people of the 10,000 Dragon Court. Lin Xian's eyes narrowed. Was the 10,000 Dragon Court again? Furthermore, they were together with Hun Tian. The people from the 10,000 Dragon Court descended from the sky. The one walking at the front was a woman. The aura of dragon blood on her body was extremely terrifying and mysterious. The surrounding geniuses all bowed respectfully. Greetings, Princess Longwu. Hun Tian shook his wine glass and patted the seat beside him. Longwu, come and sit. Longwu nodded slightly and sat down beside Hun Tian. The surrounding people were shocked. The dragons had really come. It seemed that what Hun Tian said was true. Lin Xian frowned. The name Longwu was exactly the same as the dragon prince from before. What was the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty doing? Hun Tian looked around and said, You might not have heard of this name before, but the dragon prince's name was Longwu. Longwu's voice was the same. But you should also know that she replaced the position of the dragon prince. Princess Longwu was the leader of the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty. She represents the dragons. Now that she has joined hands with me, what else do you have to worry about? The people from the surrounding holy lands and sects were stunned. Replacing the dragon prince? This was too unbelievable. Although Hun Tian didn't have the imperial bloodline, he definitely wouldn't be weak. After all, they knew that many people without the imperial bloodline had risen to prominence. For example, Hun Tian didn't have the imperial bloodline, but didn't he still become the double crown king? Everything was possible. If Hun Tian and the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty joined hands, with the 10,000 Dragon Dynasty's position in the buried Emperor Star, they would definitely be able to do it. They might even join hands to explore the tomb of the great emperor. In an instant, many holy lands and sects responded. However, there were also some people who frowned. Was it really just an alliance? They didn't think so. With Hun Tian's status, it was very likely that he wanted to control the entire true spirit world. If that was the case, their future would be miserable. However, they were only worried. No one dared to object at this time. If someone dared to object, they would be courting death. They would offend the dragons and the primal chaos race. Hun Tian alone was enough to suppress 10,000 worlds. He was a true double crown king. Seeing that no one dared to object, Hun Tian nodded and laughed. Everything was under his control. He was very satisfied. However, at this moment, Yuan Ju of the 5 Elements Holy Land walked over and said, Your Highness Hun Tian, in the central continent of the true spirit world, there is a sect called the Deity's Palace. It is also a peak force. However, I don't think they will agree to join hands so easily. Why? Hun Tian's face sank. Does he dare to go against me? The surrounding people were also shocked. Peacock's pupils shrank. That damned Yuan Ju, he was taking revenge on them at this time. Jian Shao also walked over and said, Your Highness, you might not know that the Deity's Palace's palace master is a very mysterious and terrifying person. Legend has it that their palace master is Lin Wudi of the buried Emperor Star. Lin Wudi. Everyone exclaimed. This name was like thunder in their ears. A few peak experts had appeared in the Fallen Star Hall. One was the Double Crown King Hun Tian. Another was the light-shaking realm cultivator, who cultivated the heaven-devouring demonic art. The last one was even more shocking, Lin Wuti. He was on the young sovereign list and had the qualifications to become a great emperor. Such a person's strength was terrifying. As a member of the deity's palace, would he agree to join hands with Hun Tian? One had to know that although Hun Tian had not reached the 4th floor, his main body strength was definitely extraordinary. He had the potential to become a great emperor. Such people were all sworn enemies. There was only one person who could continue on the path of the great emperor. They were natural enemies. How could they join hands? Hun Tian's eyes flashed with a cold light when he heard this. Lin Wuti, it was actually him. So this was the deity's palace's foundation. However, it did not matter. He had reached the 4th floor, but he only had the potential to become a great emperor. That possibility was too slim. Currently, the one walking outside is only one of my clones. My main body was cultivating and did not come. Otherwise, with my main body's strength, Lin Wuti would not be able to behave so atrociously in front of me. He was nothing to be afraid of. As for the strength behind Lin Wuti, it was enough to contend against the Thousand Dragon Dynasty. However, the Primal Chaos clan was born since the creation of the world. Our family's foundation is not something Lin Wuti can imagine. Whether it is in terms of strength or foundation, I can firmly suppress Lin Wuti. So you don't have to worry. Of course, no one can contend against your highness. Jian Xiao and Yuan Ju clapped and laughed. The others were also in an uproar. It seemed that Hun Tian was not afraid of Lin Wuti at all. In fact, he was extremely confident that he could suppress Lin Wuti. Then how terrifying was the other party? It seemed that the deity's palace was doomed. Chapter 5245. There was an ethereal palace in the clouds far away. There was a figure standing inside the palace. He was dressed in green and had a handsome face. She was Qing Tan, the woman who served tea to Ancestor Greenwood. There were a few figures following behind her. They were all from the Greenwood Immortal platform. It seemed that the plan had succeeded. These people didn't dare to go against Hun Tian at all. Another person said. That was because Hun Tian was the double champion. The Hundun clan behind him was even more terrifying. They had a boundary emperor in their clan. Such a person wouldn't even care about the monarch clan. Not to mention the true spirit world. Qing Tan nodded after hearing that. We can start the next step of the plan. Suddenly someone said, "Hey, look at that woman." According to the information, she should be the peacock fairy from the temple. A man pointed into the distance and said. Qing Tan and the others looked over. It turned out that the people from the temple were here too. However, they didn't stand out to resist. They should have submitted by default. At this point, they felt that the plan had succeeded. However, Qing Tan frowned slightly because she felt a sense of danger from the peacock fairy. Who was it? She realized that there was a black-robed man beside the peacock fairy. However, she felt an inexplicable sense of danger when she looked at him. What a strange person. Qing Tan was shocked. This black-robed man was not simple. He must be an unparalleled expert. She gasped. There was actually such an expert beside the temple. He probably wouldn't submit so easily. However, she didn't know if this person or Hun Tian was stronger. Next, Hun Tian, Long Wu, and some other top geniuses left. They went to the other palaces to discuss matters. The surrounding people started discussing again. After all, what Hun Tian mentioned was too shocking. They had to think carefully. At this moment someone said, "Isn't that Peacock Fairy?" "It's really her. The temple is here too." Everyone was shocked. Previously, someone mentioned the temple and they might have objected. However, they didn't expect Peacock Fairy to be here. She didn't say anything before. Could it be that she had submitted? Someone said that was for sure. How would she dare to go against Hun Tian? So what if the temple is strong? Xiang Fei sneered. Aren't you bowing your head now? His eyes were filled with schadenfreude. Previously, when he went to look for Peacock, he was ignored and even slapped in the face by Lin Xian. He was so ashamed that he could not show his face. Now that he saw the deity hall in trouble, he naturally rejoiced in their misfortune. However, he was not satisfied. He had to get his hands on Peacock and torture it to death. There was also that kid. When he thought of Lin Xian, he gritted his teeth. No matter who you are, I will make you regret it. Thinking of this, the corner of his mouth raised into a sneer. Now that the four symbols' sacred grounds had formed an alliance with His Majesty Hun Tian, he could naturally borrow His Majesty Hun Tian's strength. Thinking of this, he left. He wasn't qualified to meet Hun Tian, but he could contact the people of the All Beginnings Holy Land. He found the Saint of All Beginning. Of course, he would exaggerate some things. Holy Son of All Beginnings was furious. Are you saying that the Divine Hall is secretly gathering forces to resist us? Yes, that's right. Xiang Fei nodded. Peacock is right here. If you don't believe me, you can ask her yourself. Okay. The Saint of All Beginnings stood up and walked over with his men. Xiang Fei led the way. Peacock, let's see how you will die this time. The crowd was still discussing when a path suddenly opened up. The Saint of All Beginnings had arrived. They all bowed. Some of them could resist him, but they did not dare. After all, the primal chaos race was behind him. They could only admit defeat. Seeing these people coming, they were surprised. Who were they looking for? Could it be that someone dared to offend the Saint of All Beginnings? Did they not want to live anymore? The Saint of All Beginnings had an extraordinary status. He was a top genius. Once he used the primal chaos law, he had the power to split heaven and earth. He could suppress other top geniuses with a single hand. Who dared to resist him? Soon these people arrived in front of Peacock. They were in a confrontation. Xiang Fei smiled. Peacock Fairy, I trust you have been well since we last met. Peacock's face sank when she saw him. What do you want to do with these people? Peacock Fairy is very nervous. Don't worry, I just need your promise. The Saint of All Beginnings also walked out. Why didn't you say anything when His Highness Hun Tian united the true spirit world? Since the Deity Hall is also here, make a decision now. Do you want to submit? Everyone was in an uproar. They did not expect that they were targeting the Deity Hall. Peacock Fairy had an extraordinary status in the Deity Hall. If she lowered her head, it meant that the Deity Hall had to submit. People of the All Beginnings Holy Land, don't go too far. Peacock stood up with an ice-cold expression. Her body emitted 5-colored radiance that could engulf everything. Her bloodline was also extraordinary. Peacock was a mutated beast of heaven and earth. In addition to her years of experience, she was also a top expert. You dare to contend against us? Don't you know who we represent? We represent His Highness Hun Tian. No matter how strong you are, can you contend against the primal chaos race? The coldness of the All Beginnings Holy Land's people caused the scalps of the surrounding people to go numb. No one dared to oppose them. Xiang Fei walked out with a smile. Peacock Fairy, a wise man submits to circumstances. As long as you lower your head and become my Tao companion, I will do my best to help you get His Highness Hun Tian to forgive you. Otherwise, not only you, but your entire Deity Hall will be annihilated. Peacock was so angry that her face turned pale. This Xiang Fei was so hateful. At this time Lin Xian, who had been sitting down all this time, spoke. If you want to die, I can send you to hell. Damned brat, it's you. Xiang Fei shouted angrily. Who do you think you are? You dare to be arrogant in front of me? He turned his head and looked at the All Beginnings Holy Sun. This brat dared to look down on us. I think we should kill him as a warning to others. Since this brat dared to fight over Peacock with him, he would let him know what regret was. Thinking of this, the corners of Xiang Fei's mouth rose. Humph, let's see how you die. But in the next moment, his pupil shrank because he saw the other party raise his head. There was a trace of golden radiance flickering in his eyes. Then he felt as if his soul was about to split open. He held his head and screamed miserably. No. Ah. His soul started to burn. He rolled on the ground in pain. The surrounding void kept shattering, but he still couldn't extinguish the fire. In the blink of an eye, he turned into ashes. The surrounding people were stunned. Dead. A top-notch genius was instantly killed just like that? What kind of method was this? It was too terrifying. The All Beginnings Holy Sun was also furious. The other party dared to kill in front of him. Was this a challenge? He wouldn't allow such a person to exist. Courting death. With a cold shout, he formed a hand seal, forming the all-beginning seal. The surrounding great sects and sacred grounds of the true spirit world were all sighing in their hearts. The other party's conditions were too harsh. It was equivalent to them completely submitting to the other party. However, no one dared to resist. That was because if anyone dared to resist, that holy land would probably be turned into ashes in an instant. It seemed like this was the only way. Although he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. That's right, it wasn't embarrassing to submit to the other party. After all, the other party was the double champion. The other party's clan was rumored to have a quasi-emperor. That was probably even more terrifying than an emperor clan. Therefore, they all nodded and agreed to such a request. Hun Tian's mouth curved into a smile. The true spirit world's forces had been integrated. Next, he could make his move. It was time to explore the tomb of the great emperor. Of course, he had to wait until the matter of the Yuhua immortal dynasty was over. Suddenly, a voice came from outside. His Highness is in trouble. Hun Tian frowned. What's the matter? Didn't I say not to disturb me? However, at this moment, a person from the Hun Tian clan personally walked over. He said, Your Highness, the matter is urgent. Someone has suppressed the saint of all beginnings. Our ally, the genius of the four symbols sacred grounds, Xiang Fei, was also killed by the other party. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the hall was stunned. What's going on? Someone dared to behave atrociously here? They couldn't believe it. One had to know what kind of identity Hun Tian had. He alone suppressed the true spirit world's sacred grounds, making them unable to raise their heads. Who would dare to resist such a person? Hun Tian's face darkened, and killing intent erupted from his eyes. Are they courting death? It seemed that he was too merciful before. Well, let the true spirit world see his means. At that time, he would like to see who would dare to resist him. They actually dared to fight against His Highness. They were too reckless. Jian Shao of the sword sect stood up and shouted coldly. He had to kill him and intimidate the world. We are willing to fight for your Highness. The people of the sword sect said. The people of the five elements sacred grounds also petitioned. This was a good opportunity. Whoever could be valued by His Highness Hun Tian would have a meteoric rise. However, Hun Tian waved his hand and said, No, our primal chaos tribe will deal with this matter ourselves. Hun Li, you go. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure walked out from behind Hun Tian and said, Don't worry, Your Highness. I will suppress him and bring him here for Your Highness to deal with. This person had a monstrous aura and terrifying power, as if he was a barbarian god. Even the experts of the other sacred grounds felt their scalps go numb. Just the other party's aura was enough to frighten them. This person could definitely sweep the world. I will lead the way. Yuan Ju stood up. Then the two of them left the hall, and the others sat down again. They didn't think it was a big deal, and believed that it would be resolved soon. At the banquet outside, countless people were still discussing. After all, the scene was too shocking. The saint of all beginnings and the other experts were all suppressed, which terrified them. They didn't know what would happen next. At this moment, someone said, Someone has come to the hall. The primal chaos tribe is here. They were shocked. Did the primal chaos tribe come in person? They all looked over. A tall man walked over, and the chaotic aura on his body was abnormally terrifying. It was really someone from the primal chaos tribe. It seemed that His Highness Hun Tian was angry. Get out of the way. Yuan Ju led the way and shouted angrily. The crowd opened up a path for him. Soon, they came to the front and saw the suppressed saint of all beginnings and the others. Yuan Ju also gasped. Did they really dare to attack? Hun Li's face turned gloomy. Who was the one who did it? Get over here and die. He shouted coldly, and the void around him shattered. It was as if he was really going to split the world. The power of the primal chaos terrified everyone. This person was much stronger than the saint of all beginnings. Was this the power of the primal chaos tribe? It was too terrifying. No one could resist it. You are not Hun Tian. I told Hun Tian to get over here himself. The others are not qualified to be my opponent. Lin Xian snorted coldly. His arrogant words shocked everyone again. And the people who rushed over were also angry. Yuan Zhu was surprised. Who was so arrogant? He looked ahead. When he saw Peacock and Lin Xian, he was stunned. It was them. Weren't they the ones who drove them away? These people were very terrifying. He had experienced it before, so he wanted to remind them. But it was too late. Hunley was completely furious. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.